Gas masks and hand grenades.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome to Gas Masks and Hand Grenades. I am your host, Jeff, and today we are jumping into some Jethro Tull. We're going to do phase one of, there's actually 24 studio albums, but we're only going to do 22 because one's like a Christmas album and the other one's like a archival re-release, re-recording of stuff, so we're not going to get into that one. But we're going to do it in three phases, as I mentioned in the description below. We're going to do phase one today, which is the albums This Was through Heavy Horses, which is 1968 through 1978. I put 77 accidentally on the thumbnail, so I fucked up. Sorry about that, but it's 78. So we're doing those first 11, and then in phase two, we're going to do oh shit, I forgot the name of the album, Stromwatch, through the final album, which just came out this year, called RokFlot, I don't know, RokFlot, which I haven't even listened to. I have not listened to the last two and don't own those. We have an esteemed panel here. We've got another old dude like me, no offense, Patrick.
None taken.
But it's true. You and I are kind of the old dogs here. We've got Patrick from the Vinyl Archivist joining Gas Mask for the very first time. Patrick, what's up, man?
Good to be here. I've come to know Jeff for the last several weeks. He's been on my my Friday crazy stream. Where we were, and I think you were on Sunday as well. So we do lots of different things on my channel. We do a lot of shootouts, do a lot of comparisons of pressings and things like that. I'm also known as PB Thal, a vinyl ripper for the last 12 years. If you've probably downloaded a torrent or something of a vinyl rip, it's probably good chances are it was me that did it. So yes.
Yeah, you really get into that. That's kind of your specialty. And Pat has insane amounts of knowledge and records, and going back into the 50s and 60s and 70s, and we're old dogs. He's an ex-roadie and light guy for a bunch of different bands from the 80s and 90s and shit like that. So
I'm a Texan. So yes, by the way, I don't live in Texas. I live in California, but as a Texan, you're once a Texan, you're always a Texan.
Were you born in Texas?
Oh, yeah, born and raised in South Texas in Brownsville. So
okay, Brownsville, you're way down. Yeah.
I'm very excited to be here. I'm glad to be. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you two guys have to school.
Yeah, man, we really appreciate you being here. And actually, Pat and I kind of met thanks to Malia J. She put Pat onto my channel, and he happened to pop in when I was interviewing Monty Colvin of the Galactic Cowboys, and he and Monty had some similar friends and places they were at. Like, I missed those clubs because I was just a little too young, because Monty's 64 and I'm 57, so he was able to, I was just right on the verge of being able to get in those clubs, but not quite. So that's how Pat and I came together, and like he said, I've done two. I think I was on with you one Friday night and one Sunday night, maybe another night.
Yeah.
Met some super cool people on there. He's got a lot of really cool guys that pop in, and the great thing about his channel is they talk about metal, they talk about yacht rock, they talk about yes, prog rock and Marillion, and Pat's a big Marillion head. So yeah, man. So we Pat, it was a natural to be here. And we really appreciate it. Then down there, we got the young buck, the young Canuck, Cronus Jr., as we call him, as we love to call him. He loves that shit. He hates it. But anyway, he's awesome. Erik Berg from Psychic Vacuum, which I can't say now doesn't have any stuff on it because you got 4 videos on it. Yeah. 4 videos. He's going to be upgrading. You're going to be upgrading your camera at some point, right?
I might try just using my phone for now, but because I don't know, this camera seems to work okay for streaming, but not for like filming and uploading stuff. So yeah, but I do have a couple things in the mail I'm going to be talking about pretty soon, I think.
Cool. Glad to have you on board, dude. You've been my go-to prog nerd guy, which is great because you're in your late 20s, approaching 30, and so a lot of this stuff happened many years before you were born. A lot of these bands are older than both Pat and I, as far as how long these guys have been around, and they're kind of lasting institutions in the classic rock sense. And I know that's a dirty word. Oh, classic rock. Oh, fuck all you classic rock haters, because if it wasn't for classic rock, I'm going to tell you right now, there wouldn't be death metal, there wouldn't be black metal, there wouldn't be prog metal. Those genres would not exist. It was these bands right here that set the foundational floor with record companies that allowed record companies to go, all right, let's take a chance on something a little outside the box and weird, and let's do that. So again, I think bands like Jethro Tull and Led Zeppelin, and I get it. Some younger cats are like, oh, it's old, tired dad rock, or that's really old, tired, whatever. It's and people talk about the yacht rock thing, right, Patrick? And man, there's just so much good fucking music there, right?
I just like good songs. If I like a song, I'll listen to it. I don't care what genre it is. It's like I don't care. If I like it, I like it.
Exactly. If you're a music head, this is the place to be. So we got Ryan in that chat. We got Devin in the chat. We got Phil. We got Rick. Thanks for being here, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you guys a little bit about, what's your memory of where you came into this band. I'm going to change the view here a little bit. Pat, I'm going to let you go first with what's your first memory of Jethro Tull and where you came in at?
Probably my first memory would probably be Bungle in the Jungle. That was probably the first the first thing I heard on the radio, because it was kind of the first real big radio hit, just AM radio hit. I mean, it was being played on FM, but you could hear Aqualung and stuff like that, I guess, if you were into FM. But I was in a small town in Brownsville, which didn't have a lot of FM. We used to have to go to the beach, have to try to pull in KLOL. But for AM radio, I heard Bungle in the Jungle was the first one for me. And that's
then, so 75, 76 in that range.
Yeah, so that was probably let's see, that was War Child, and but then after that, I probably heard Living in the Past was probably something that I heard next, and then then somebody turned me on to Aqualung, and then it goes from there. Then the live album was really big at that time.
Oh,
too.
Yeah,
the live album came out, and Bursting Out was huge at that time, because live albums were big. You got 2 albums for a little bit less than the price of one, a little bit more than the price of one, and so the live album was big. And then after that, it was kind of. I remember there was a period like with A and that period where Broadsword got a little. I mean, A was almost like krautrockish a little bit. It was, he got what Jobson was on that album, I think.
Right, Flying Dutchman.
Yeah. So.
Well, that was supposed to be Ian's solo album, but the record company said, "Nah, we're putting the Tull name on it." And actually, I'm glad you brought up Bursting Out. Do you have it with you? Do you have a copy?
I do believe I do. Yes.
Okay, pull that out, because I don't actually own that, so we might want that. I'll go to Eric and let you go next, buddy. How about you? When did you come into the Tull catalog?
So it's kind of weird and probably something that only people around my age could even possibly relate to. But I had I don't know if you guys have probably heard of like Guitar Hero video games and stuff like that. So there's this other one called Rock Band, and I had the Rock Band game on my iPod Touch back in the day, which it's kind of a ridiculous thing. You have these bars coming at you, and you click these little buttons to hit the right notes or whatever. And that game had Hymn 43 on it as one of the songs you could play, and that was, I think, the first Jethro Tull song I ever heard. And I liked it straight away, but I, for whatever reason, never investigated them for a long time after that. That was probably around 2008, 2007, maybe even. And then probably around, I don't know, 2013, 2014, I did kind of a music swap, digital music swap kind of thing with a guy I went to school with, and got a bunch of Jethro Tull albums on my iPod, but I never really listened to them. But the one day on Shuffle, I remember the song Songs from the Wood came on, and it just instantly clicked with me for whatever reason. And I guess it was it was weird too, because I kind of gradually got into them after that. Some of the stuff was a little too weird for me at that point. But I don't know. I always had this perception growing up that Jethro Tull wasn't cool, and
right.
They probably still aren't.
They still aren't. Yeah.
Yeah,
they're not cool. Still not.
They're never going to be like a Led Zeppelin or a Pink Floyd or whatever like that. They're a little too nerdy of a band.
A little too rustic and British and kind of bucolic and folky, and a lot of flute. A lot of prog rock. Yep.
Yeah, but
all right, so it was 2009.
What's that
for you? It was 2008, 2009.
Originally, when I heard a song or two, but really started getting into them around 2014, maybe 2015, probably 2014, I would say.
Okay, cool. All
right, I don't have Bursting Out here. I have it somewhere, but I don't know where it is. My collection's
we'll probably I'll make mention of it, but we'll move on from that because I don't typically dwell on live albums, but that is an important 70s live album, like Live and Dangerous and Strangers in the Night, and that kind of, Song Remains the Same. But maybe we'll tie that in the final episode if you rejoin us then, Pat. For me, this was the album I first heard and first saw, and the title track, 1972, it was all over the place, right? Or for me, it was 1972 when I first heard it. I grew up next to a household of 5 older boys, the oldest being, I'm 57. I got to believe he's probably 70 now, maybe even a little older. So their parents are long gone. But it was a house that the guy was a doctor, and they had 5 older boys, ranging from probably, 19, 20, early college, down to a kid that was 1 year older than me, Mark. And I would go over there and be that pesky fucking 8-year-old kid, 7-year-old kid, 6-year-old kid that was hanging out with the adult boys. My mom crazily let me go over there. I can't believe it. Because they were already talking about sex and girls and beer and shit like that, pot and all that stuff. And I'm like this 7-year-old kid walking around going, yeah, I'm cool, hanging out with the older dudes. And they would always play pool in their garage in the summer with the doors open. And they would play Yes, Close to the Edge. They would play Cheech and Chong, Up in Smoke, or whatever the George Carlin, The Words You Can't Say, that thing.
Merry Elephant.
And this was one of the albums that was always playing. So I know this album literally like, the memories go right there. It's not my favorite, but it's the one that I remember the most. And again, I'd have been about 7 years old, 70, maybe we're talking 73, 74. So I'd have almost been 8 years old. So this was already out a couple years, but they play this album on the turntable in the garage. So that's where I came in. So that's that. So how about we move into a real quick history of the band, and then we'll get into the albums, guys. So Jethro Tull are a British rock band formed in Luton, Bedfordshire, 1967, initially playing blues rock and jazz fusion. The band soon incorporated elements of British Isles folk music, hard rock, classical music, and forged a signature progressive rock sound. The group's band leader, founder, principal composer, and only constant member is Ian Anderson, a multi-instrumentalist who mainly plays flute and acoustic guitar, and is also the lead vocalist. The group has featured a succession of musicians throughout the decades, including significant contributors such as Mick Abrams on guitar, Martin Barr, with Barr being the longest-serving member besides Anderson on guitar, lead guitar, keyboardist John Evans, Dee Palmer, Peter John Batiste, and Andrew Giddings. Those are all the different keyboard players. Drummers Clyde Bunker, Barry Barlow, and Joe Perry. Yeah, I'm having trouble with some of these pronunciations. And bassist Glenn Cornick, Jeffrey Hammond, John Glasscock, David Pegg, and Jonathan Noyce. And just a word, I let the guys know, I have an ulcer under my tongue that's developed due to a jagged tooth I need to have fixed. And of course, that thing flared up this morning. Wasn't bothering me for days, and it flared up this morning. So if I sound like I got marbles in my mouth, that's kind of why I'm trying not to talk on one side of my mouth. Which we all know me trying not to talk is impossible. So there you go. All right. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to start with, I think, if you don't mind, Pat, I'm going to start with the young guy first on these.
Feel free. That way I can get a feel for how things go here. So.
Yeah, we'll go in that order. I'll go last and say as much as you like, as little as you like. Although if you get running on for 10, 15 minutes on an album, I'm going to have to move on. Otherwise, we'll be here all night. So the first album we're going to talk about here. I jumped the gun. Hold on one second.
Yeah,
first album we're going to talk about here is This Was, which came out in October 25th, 1968, recorded June 13th through August 23rd, 1968 at Sound Technique in Chelsea, London. It was released on the Island label, which, you know, if you know a lot of your history about British music, Island was a huge label. Who was the guy that headed that? Chris
Blackwell.
Blackwell, right. All the big major prog artists, Nick Drake, all these people were on Island. Cat Stevens, right. It was
a lot of them were A&M here. A lot of them would become A&M over here. If they were on Island over there, they would be A&M over here. Until Island had an imprint, yeah.
Distribution on A&M, right. Producers Terry Ellis and Jethro Tull. Real quick notes on this. While vocalist Ian Anderson's creative vision largely shaped Jethro Tull's later albums, on This Was, Anderson shared writing duties with Tull's guitarist Mick Abrams. In part due to Abrams' influence, the album incorporates more rhythm and blues, jazz influences than the progressive rock the band later became known for. In particular, This Was also contains the only Jethro Tull lead vocal not performed by Ian Anderson on a studio album on the track Move On Alone, which Mick Abrams did. The song's author provided the vocals. Dee Palmer, who became a keyboardist later, was primarily the orchestrator for the early Tull albums. It was not a permanent member, but a hired.
I think Dee Palmer also later became a woman. I think
became a woman. That's right. Wow, I don't think it was David Palmer.
David Palmer? Okay. Yeah,
it was David Palmer. Then transitioned into Dee Palmer. One of the early people in music that did that. Quite frankly, very brave. Yes, Dee Palmer provided horn arrangements, and Abrams left Jethro Tull following the album, after this album, during the recording of the next album. So, okay, so we're going to go from there with This Was. And by the way, real quick, one last thing. Sorry, keep jumping the gun. We're all going to show our copies if we have them. If we don't, it's not a big deal. I have them all. I'm showing the 40th anniversary book box sets. We are not going to get into all the supplemental materials on here. That's going to be for the final episode where we just talk about supplemental stuff. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had nearly enough time to listen to all this shit, because there's a lot of extra unreleased stuff that was never heard until these were released. So, all right, Eric, I think I'm done yakking. Your turn.
All right, so this is one of the albums that I'm just generally not super familiar with. It's just not one I go back to a whole lot if I'm going to listen to Jethro Tull, to be honest. It's mostly kind of a blues rock kind of album. It sounds very late 60s blues rock. There's bits of jazz and stuff here, and I do think the flute kind of elevates it somewhat above the basic kind of blues rock stuff. Some of that stuff that was coming out around that time. It's actually like a pretty good album, to be honest. Revisiting it, I mean, I had only heard this probably once or twice before this week, but now that I've gone back and listened to it a couple more times, I actually enjoy it quite a bit, to be honest. My Sunday Feeling is the first song, good hard blues rocker with the flute is already like pretty prominent right from the start of the album. And it kind of, it just gives it that extra layer that a lot of bands weren't using at this point in time. Beggar's Farm is a cool song, kind of dark and jazzy. Move On Alone is the one that you said Mick Abrams did lead vocals on. I didn't look it up, but it sounded like somebody else doing the vocals on that. And this was Mick Abrams' only album with the band, right? He quit and went on to, I forget if he quit or he was kind of kicked out.
They mutually parted ways.
It was a mutual parting of ways, yeah.
Right, because they kind of realized he wanted to do a different thing than they did, or at least than Ian did, and he went on to do Bloodwind Pig, which is a pretty cool band too. They only had, I think, 2 albums, but kind of jazzy blues rock stuff, kind of similar to this album, but
yeah,
that stuff is worth checking out for sure too. Move On Alone is a pretty short song, but really catchy, really cool drumming on that one too. Dharma for One is a cool instrumental. The drum solo on that is a little long for me, but other than that, it's a good song. Cat Squirrel, another instrumental. This album I think has about like 3 instrumentals on it.
4 instrumentals.
4.
Quite a few. Cat Squirrel is pretty heavy, bluesy. And then you get Song for Jeffrey, which is kind of the biggest hit off the album. I think, I don't know if it was a hit at the time, but it's the most famous one as far as I know at this point. That's a really good song, catchy, lots of harmonica in it. And there's cool footage on YouTube of Tony Iommi playing this song live with them when he joined the band for a few weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah, he was gonna step in when Mick Abrams left, but it was sort of he was just gonna help record, but it just didn't gel, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it was after, because they were called Earth, right? And then they broke up, and he joined Jethro Tull. And I read a bit of an interview with him a few years ago, and he was talking about how Black Sabbath basically wouldn't have existed if he hadn't joined Jethro Tull, because that was where he learned from Ian Anderson that if you want to get somewhere as a band, you have to have a practice schedule and that kind of stuff, and you have to just get things done rather than just like kind of whatever, like not take it seriously.
Fuck around.
Exactly. So he learned that kind of mode of doing things from Ian and basically took that back to Black Sabbath, and that's how they took off after that.
Imagine Ian Anderson singing Snowblind.
Yeah, I always wonder like what would have happened if he had stayed in Jethro Tull. It would have been
his riffs. That would have been very funky.
Would have been very weird. It wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked. And here's why.
Ian's the leader of the band.
Ian is the leader of the band. He's the songwriter of the band. They would not have been able to coexist. The only reason Jethro Tull's been as successful is that everyone else was like, hey, Ian's the guy. We kind of do what he says we do.
Yeah.
And
we got 2 amazing bands instead of 1. So
exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, this is different from any other Jethro Tull album for sure, but it's a really solid debut, and although I don't go back to it all that often, it's definitely worth checking out.
You rating them or no?
I did rate them. I give it probably a 7 out of 10.
Cool. Pat, you don't have to do that, but we do usually rate them. So.
Oh, see, you slid that into me at the last
minute.
Well, you didn't let me
and here's the thing: you can do it like ABC, A minus, A B not. We usually do like an out of 10 scale. So
or
if you want to do it that way, you can. If you don't want to, you can defer.
Hey, it's not like I'm getting paid by Ian Anderson. I don't care. I'll rate this. I'll rate this.
All right, man. What you got on This Was? I know you like this.
So I do like This Was, but I also in the early days I wasn't a big fan of this record. I mean, I probably really jumped in when I was getting into Jethro Tull. Probably at Stand Up was where I started, and this was, but not until I got the mono version of this record, which is on the original.
Wow, yeah.
Cool.
So I forgot about that cover.
Yeah, it's got the laminated cover. It's got the nice gatefold, but the laminated cover, it's got the flip back.
Oh, sweet
texture. The stereo has the same thing, but I'll concentrate on the mono because the mono mix is the one that I gravitate to. But this is what the original Pink Rim Island label looked like in the day.
Oh, sweet, man!
How cool is that? I mean, that is
super cool.
You got the little target there. I mean, this is probably a pretty pricey record these days. Probably $150 record now. This thing's immaculate, but I like the mono.
I forgot to mention, Pat is a vinyl dude, hard and heavy, and he knows his shit about pressings and all that kind of stuff. We are, as you know, Pat, I'm a CD guy 99% of the way. So it's cool. This is great.
I'm not anti-digital. All my vinyl rips are in digital, so I'm not anti-digital. I mean, yep. I just like getting the best source to start from there and get to there. It's up until I think the 40th anniversary, I don't think you could get the mono mix in anything but on vinyl. So I think the 40th anniversary does have the mono mix on it.
Yeah, it's on here. Yeah.
And so to me, that really just kind of focuses everything in. I didn't, the 1968 mix, I think it's got a lot of hard panning in the stereo, and it's not, it's not a really, they didn't spend a lot of time on that mix, you can tell. But my favorite part about this record is Mick Abrams. I'm a big Mick Abrams fan. I love Bloodwind Pig. I thought it's kind of funny that Bloodwind Pig also was signed to Island, and Stand Up and the first Bloodwind Pig album both came out, I think, within a couple months of each other on Island. So they basically just kind of like said, here, put them up against each other. But Move On Alone is a great song. It's interesting to see Ian Anderson take a step back and somebody else. This is the only instance where there's another alpha in the band that you can really see is an alpha in the band. Yeah. I mean, My Sunday Feeling, the non-instrumental stuff, you can really tell where Mick Abrams is kind of like, driving the ship here, I mean, but some of the songs where his interplay with the flute and his guitar playing really, really mesh well. I mean, it actually worked in a lot of instances. Dharma for One is like a staple in the live show. So is a song for Jeffrey. Those are probably the two standouts that he's probably he played for a long time after that. Those were, and I think a Dharma for One's been redone by several other bands. And to me, there's a couple more instrumentals that I could do without. I don't know if they didn't have enough material, or they didn't have a lot of time or money. I think they made this for like £1,000. The whole album cost not much more than like £1,000.
Right.
And the production,
which now that would be like $200,000 or $300,000. Back then, it was a lot of money, actually.
Well, yeah, it was, but they didn't have. They weren't even an established band. I mean, so. Right. But yeah, this one is something that I would definitely recommend to, if you can kind of get past some of the instrumentals and just kind of focus in on the songs that actually have lyrics. Pay close attention to the interplay between Ian Anderson and Mick Abrams, and like I said, how the bluesiness of the flute and everything. This is the only time you're really going to get to hear that is on this record. Because things definitely change when Martin Barr comes in and Ian Anderson just takes control and just says, we're going this way, which is fine. I mean, I'm glad they went that way. They could have been just another bluesy band, but this is an important first step in the way where he takes over and says, we're going to do it my way. And this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to sink or swim doing music that I want to do. So, so all to you.
All right. Cool. Did you want to rate it?
Oh, sorry. I would give this a solid, I would go with 7. I would give it, it would probably be higher if it didn't have so many instrumentals that I thought were just kind of throwaways. It probably would have kind of gotten up to an 8.5 for me. But yeah, because of the instrumental thing, I'm going to give it a 7. So. Okay,
cool. Which was not an uncommon thing when you think back to late blues bands of the 60s. They were doing a lot, your Yardbird, stuff like that. They were always doing covers of something, right? But you're right, it's a little covers heavy. Not covers, instrumental heavy, I think. And just a note on the 40th anniversary book, which came out, I believe, in 18. This has the original UK stereo mix and an original 68 mono mix from a 2008 remaster, and then you've got this too is just shit tons of live and mono singles and all kind of stuff like that, and then you've got 3 additional tracks that were previously unreleased, and 1 or 2 other tracks that are different versions, a flute version, so forth and so on. So, this is and by the way, this is the 50th anniversary, not the 40th. Okay. This one right here for 2018. Yeah. So on this one, not one I go back to a lot, but not one that I dislike. When I put it on, I'm kind of like, oh, this is better than I remember it. It's kind of one of those records. It's not in my wheelhouse. I like blues a lot. I'm a Hendrix guy and a Stevie Ray and all that stuff. but I'm not like a guy that lives there in the blues all the time. So it's kind of like I'll listen to it. It was fun to go listen to it here, but it's going to be down towards the tail end of my favorites when we rank these at the end of episode 2, which, by the way, I just dropped that on you guys if you're going to be here for episode 2. Rank them for the end of that one. But so my Sunday feeling kicks it off. Heavy blues jam, da 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 da. You got great flute, da 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 da. You know, my Sunday feeling. It's got a real jazz swing to it, right? It's got that swingy, jazzy blues thing to it. Really great flute melodies. Really great chorus on this one. Someday Sun, very standard blues. I guarantee you, I do know a little bit about my blues, and if you would, didn't have the lyrics on that and the vocal melody, I would say it's "Come On In My Kitchen" by Robert Johnson. That's basically the structure Mick Abrams stole for that one. Beggar's Farm, that's probably one of my 2 favorite songs on the album. It's a really great melody, great vocals on that one by Ian, very memorable. Serenade is, lots of flutes, cool groove. The grunts and groans by Ian, I love when he plays the flute. He attacks it, man. He's like, he just he sucks on it and he pisses it off and he's like so into it, right? That song is probably the best one for that. Dharma, which you said early on was a big live favorite, always usually includes a long drum solo by Clive Bunker. And man, Bunker was a hell of a drummer. Holy shit. Very jazzy, very busy. Lots of cymbal work. Really killer, man. Love that song. It's Breaking Me Up. Pretty boring. Cat Squirrel. Not one of the better tracks on the album for me. Song for Jeffrey was one of the 2 singles, I believe. Kind of a bluesy country-ish song with a lot of slide guitar on it, which was kind of unusual for them. And harmonica as well. There's also a strange affected vocal by Ian Anderson on there. I can't tell whether it's like a plate reverb or some type of weird reverb, but it kind of I dig it. It's a weird track. And then Round is a jazzy flute outro. I'm gonna go 6.5. It's not a bad album. It's just it's not really a hint at where the things are about to go. It's kind of as both of you guys mentioned, and in particular Pat, it's an amalgam of Ian Anderson and Mick Abrams' vision for the band. And that's going to create a difficult situation moving forward into the next album. So I go 6.5. It's one of my least favorites. Doesn't mean it's not worth owning. Doesn't mean it's not, although I wouldn't go out and search for the $150 version Pat has, unless you're a diehard. I would find, you can probably still find this one for sale, I think, right?
But don't sleep on the mono mix. Even if you get that version, listen to the mono mix and then tell me what you think. So.
Now I didn't listen to it in mono, so I need to go back and do that. I apologize. I didn't have time. But yeah, this is a well worth it package because you get both the mixes. You get the Steven Wilson remaster, reissue or remix. Then you get all this bonus stuff. Whether you ever listen to it or not, hard to say. I've listened to it all at least 2 times. Whether I'll go back to it a lot or not, hard to say. Maybe if I made a mixtape. But one other thing to note with these, and I'm not going to do this with all of them, but I am going to do it here. These come with, I tell you, without question, I'm a box set guy, as you know, Eric. Got hundreds of box sets. These are some of my favorite box sets. They do it super right, and they do it super affordably. Most of these, when they came out to retail, were $35 to $45. The new one for Broadsword is $80, but you get 8 discs. 8 discs. It's $10 a disc. You can't beat that. Plus, you get these incredible write-ups and these books that I didn't have time to read all this stuff. It would have taken me a year to put this, deep dive together. So you get it's value for money. Now, the one thing to add, these don't stay in print forever. And the original Thick as a Brick went out of print very fast because it was the first one. And they were going for $400 and $500. They have reissued it finally, but the rest of these have not been reissued. And we'll talk about the value of some of them as we get down in here. A couple of them are pushing the $500 mark that I own. So my Jethro Tull 40th anniversaries are some of my most valuable things I own right now.
Boy, I thought that $150 mono record was expensive. Boy, look at that.
Well, right here. This one here was going for over $500, and the Songs from the Wood, try to find one under $300. I don't think you're going to find one.
Yeah,
they're out of print. Whether they repress them or not, I don't know. They did repress thick, but this is, and it's the only one that I have that is not an original because I missed the first one, the first pressing, and I was not going to pay $200-300 for it. But they just reissued it when, Eric? I think beginning of the year or last year.
I think it was last year.
All that for 2 songs.
Yeah.
2022. This was reissued, and it's only 2 discs, and I got it for like $16-18 about 2 weeks ago, and they made a slight revision to the inside of this stuff so that it's differentiated from the original. I don't care. I don't need the original.
It's pretty close, though, to be honest.
It's close, yeah.
I compared them. And I just looked up, this was, you can get it, that box set, the 50th for this was, you can get it for about $60 Canadian, it looks like. Still.
Right. It's Passion Play, War Child, Minstrel, and
the original
songs that are the hard ones to find right now. And they may end up reissuing them. Who knows? But all right, moving on. Next up, we got Stand Up. This came out July 25th, 1969, recorded April 17th, 69 through May 21st, 69 at Morgan Studio, Olympic Studio, London. Came out on Island and Reprise in the States, Patrick. Reprise.
Yep.
Terry Ellis and Ian Anderson again doing the production. Something just fell out of here. What was that? Oh, that thing. What's cool about this one, and I'm sure you have it in album form, is the stand-up version has the stand-up. There you go, the vinyl album. Right. Oh, we all got one. Right. So cool. Which in the original vinyl, which I don't know, is that original, Pat? Probably is, right?
This one is the Analog Productions, just recent reissue.
Oh, it's a reissue. So. Okay.
But they did a really good job with the pop-up.
So again, you're talking with this one, you're talking 4 discs. Wait, hold on. 3 discs. I'm sorry. One is a DDD 5.1. All the ones have 5.1 remixes, by the way. And we'll talk about the extras in another episode. So real quick notes on this one. Represents the first album project on which Anderson was in full control of the music and lyrics. The result was an eclectic album with various styles and instrumentation appearing in its song. The album quickly went to #1 in the UK charts, further launching the band's career, while the non-album single, Living in the Past, peaked at #3. The album was also Jethro Tull's first success in the United States, reaching #20. Wow, that's surprising, on Billboard's 200, top 200. During the recording of this, frontman Ian Anderson began writing new material which differed from straight blues jazz fusion, which the band were known for at the time. Anderson estimated that he wrote 50% of Stand Up during the summer of '68. He wrote album songs on an acoustic guitar in a bedsit in Kentish Town, London, and cited Roy Harper, Ornette Coleman, Charlie Parker, Bert Jansch, Pentangle, Blind Faith, and Jimi Hendrix as inspirations. The new material departure from the band's blues-based style caused conflict with guitarist Mick Abrams, who was a blues purist. Anderson recalled running some of the new songs by Mick and coming to the conclusion that they weren't going to be up his street at all, while drummer Clive Barker stated that when Ian started to write new and different stuff, that's when we realized we were going to have a serious problem, because Mick just didn't want to do it. The stylistic clash resulted in Abrams' departure from the band in December '68. The band initially began rehearsals for Stand Up with Black Sabbath guitarist Tony Iommi. However, Iommi left the band after only a few weeks as he did not feel he fit in well with the group. The job eventually went to Martin Barr, who immediately joins for rehearsals for Stand Up before making his live debut with the band December 30th, 1968. All right. Let her rip, Eric.
Yeah. I used to own a copy of this. I ordered it off Discogs or something, and I thought it was the version that had this, but it wasn't. So I had to sell that and get this, because that's pretty cool. You don't find that too often with an album. Yeah, this is a huge, as good as the debut is, this is a huge step up. I mean, just the songwriting even, and this is where Jethro Tull really starts to find their identity.
Yep.
It's not so much, I wouldn't quite call it prog rock yet at this point. There's still a lot of blues elements, a little bit of jazz here and there, and some folk stuff, of course. But yeah, I love this album. Martin Barre immediately just makes his presence known on this, and from that riff in the first song, "A New Day Yesterday," it's just like
bow, bow, bow. So good.
Yeah, love that song. Super heavy, great riff in that. And I love the rhythm to it, and that kind of the I don't know what to call it.
It's a shuffle. It's a shuffle.
Yeah,
shuffle.
Yeah, it is totally a shuffle. Jeffrey Goes to Leicester Square. That's kind of a short, just acoustic type thing. I'm pretty sure. Bourrée is that one where it's kind of a jazzy. I think it might have been adapted from like a classical piece.
Bach.
I think so. Yeah.
Yep.
That one they played quite a bit live and stuff, I think, too. Back to the Family is a really cool song. It kind of alternates. The lyrics fit really well with the music in that one. It alternates kind of these mellower, jazzy kind of sections, and then the heavy guitars come in, and it kind of, the lyrics jump back and forth, too, and it kind of really fits together nicely. Look Into the Sun is just beautiful, acoustic, kind of folky song with some great lyrics. Nothing Is Easy is another really heavy, like just driving bluesy ripper. Fat Man is kind of an interesting one. It's like that kind of folky, I don't know if there's mandolin or something on there, maybe. Kind of funny in that one.
But it's 12 string, actually.
Oh, yeah, okay. It's just a fun song, though. We Used to Know is another heavier one. It's really great. Reasons for Waiting as well is another beautiful kind of folky one. And then For a Thousand Mothers is, again, heavy, bluesy, jazzy. Just a super consistent album. I really enjoy every song on here. It's interesting that you said Ian wrote the whole album pretty much on acoustic guitar. It makes sense. A lot of times, like, I haven't really written a whole lot of music myself, but I definitely find a lot of times when I play an acoustic guitar instead of an electric, it really helps to come up with melodies and stuff like that. You don't get lost so much in the sound of it, the effects and all that kind of stuff. And so it makes sense.
Eric, it distills the essence of the song.
Exactly.
When you're playing with effects and you're doing all kind of shit with electric and electronics, it becomes layering. But when you're just sitting down and you're just doing you're just doing the chordal thing, you bring out the essence of the vocal melodies and the actual melodies of the song.
Yeah. And this album as well is where the acoustic guitar really starts to come out. And I will say right now, Ian Anderson is a fantastic acoustic guitar player.
Killer guitar player.
Never really did a lot of electric stuff as far as I know. Not that he needed to with Martin Barre in the band, but
exactly.
Yeah, he doesn't really get a whole lot of credit for his guitar work.
Yeah, he's amazing guitar player, man.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's kind of like weirdly when people talk about guitar players like underrated, he's probably one of the most underrated guitar players because all he's doing, you do that. I can't do it right now because I broke my knuckle. I broke my knuckle a couple weeks ago and I can't. It's almost healed, but I can't make that. It's the. I can't do the chords yet because I can't get my knuckle to do it. But for Thick as a Brick, man, that's a tricky little song to play, man. Not easy at all. Not easy.
Yeah.
God, man, what are you giving it?
Yeah. This is an easy 9, maybe almost a 9.5 for me.
Wow. Wow. Really nice. All right. What you got, Pat?
Okay, so we've already shown the pop-up, so I need to do that. But one thing I have to mention before we get into this is if you wanted to see where Jethro Tull might have gone if Mick Abrams would have stayed, I highly suggest you check this record out. The head rings out. This is Mick Abrams going his own way. Like I said, released the exact same year as this album Stand Up was. This was on the same label. This was like Me Against You, and we all know how this battle ended. But
yeah, right.
But
yeah, it's a great album.
So this is probably easily in my top 3 probably favorite Jethro Tull albums. I mean, A New Day Yesterday, the guitar riff on A New Day Yesterday is as heavy as anything in 1969. Even Sabbath, I don't care if you talk Sabbath, anything. It's as heavy as anything. It sounds
like Sabbath, doesn't it? Yeah. It sounds like Sabbath.
It's almost doom. It's almost doom sounding. The guitar part, the guitar riff is almost doomy. You know, I mean, and it's so heavy especially for that. And then what's funny is you transition from that into Jeffrey Goes to Leicester Square, which is like this lilting. You know, I love that. I love Jeffrey Goes to Leicester Square, but I mean, it's basically just like guitar and percussion. You know, it's just got a lot of percussion, a lot of different kind of muted percussion, kind of. But yeah. And then probably the one thing I could have done without on this record is Bourrée. I mean, I'm not even though he still plays it, I think, today, and it's like a big thing for him. You know, how he, like you talked about him attacking the flute. He attacks the flute on Bourrée, but and then a couple of songs probably that not my favorites on this record, Back to the Family and Look Into the Sun. They're very similar sounding to me. It's like they're on the same vein. But then comes to probably one of my favorite Jethro Tull songs, and that's Nothing Is Easy. Nothing Is Easy could have easily been the opener of this album, and it would have been the perfect opener for this record. I mean, Nothing Is Easy is everything I love about Jethro Tull. It's heavy, it's well put together, it's got great vocals, it's got a great chorus, and it's just a driving song from start to finish. I just absolutely love Nothing Is Easy.
Yeah.
And speaking of Mick Abrams, Fat Man, which is allegedly is a song about Mick
Abrams. Him, that's right. Yep,
so he's kind of like going, I'm sure there was a back and forth between them when they left, and although they did mend their fences later on, but Fat Man is definitely next is We Used to Know, which I think is when they mention Blind Faith, I kind of see the Blind Faith influence on this song. Reasons for Waiting and For a Thousand Mothers, they kind of flow into each other because at the end of Reasons for Waiting, it goes into the percussion part that gets into the driving end of the album. And a lot of times when I record this, I forget to split the 2 songs because I just think of them as one. And so I've actually done that many times where I split it. But what a great way to end it with For a Thousand Mothers. It's just, it's driving. It's got great percussion. So like I said, this is one of my favorite Jethro Tull albums. And I need to give myself wiggle room. If I give it a 9.5, that kind of puts me in a corner, for some of these other things that are be coming up later. But I have to give it a 9.5. I mean,
I don't blame you.
So yeah, it deserves it. It is one of my most beloved Jethro Tull albums by far. Is Stand Up.
Nice. Just sitting here, I was sorry to be if I was rude, but I was hearing the melody, and it's that. Right. Just such a riff, man. Just such a killer riff. It sounds weird on acoustic, but it's just imagine Ian sitting and coming out of that riff going, "Oh, that's gonna sound really killer with a lot of distortion and delay on it, or whatever." Chorusing or whatever.
For 1969, there was nothing heavier. I mean, nothing.
Yeah, that's a fucking monster riff.
Especially when it kicks into the verse and he does the he walks back down.
Yeah, he does those chromatics down then. Yeah, it's so cool, man. New Day Yesterday, man. Balls heavy, dark and foreboding, killer chromatic riff and flute pairing. Because Ian's playing the flute on that while he's doing the down, 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 down. Ian's just fucking blowing all over it. It's just killer, man. Favorite track, one of my favorite Tull tracks. Jeffrey Goes to Leicester Square, cool, rustic. You'll hear that word a lot, rustic. Acoustic, non-distorted guitars. Bourrée, one of Tull's famous tracks. And it's just a jam, man. It's a jam. I love it. Very popular track and live track. Back to the Family. Sick track that has patented Ian Anderson chord progressions that would be more accurate on acoustic, but it really works in the electric vibe too. Heavier fucking chorus on that one. Love it. Look Into the Sun. Killer acoustic folky rocker. Amazing verse on that one, and choruses on top too. It's just one of the top songs for me on Stand Up. I fucking love that song. Nothing is easy. I'm with you, Patrick. It's got a shuffle jazz down. It's like it's bluesy, but it's not straight blues. It's got a jazz sort of hustle, sort of jazz shuffle to it, and it's killer fucking track. Fat Man's probably my least favorite song on the album, but what's interesting about that one is it's got an Arabic or Middle Eastern, almost gypsies vibe to it. It's got that gypsy jazz sort of vibe to it. And I don't know what, I'd have to go re-listen to it. I didn't know whether it was mandolin. I think you might be right. Down, 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 down. But anyways, yeah, another great song. We Used to Know. Killer dark acoustic track with a great melody. Ian's stellar flute playing on that one. That might be his best flute track on the album. Great 70s leads by, that 70-ish sounding lead sustained guitar that I just fucking hear in my dreams when I play guitar. It's like, oh, that's the caramel lead sound of Jimmy Page and Martin Barr and, all those great 70s guitar players. Brian May. Just a crazy one. And then Reasons for Waiting. Guys, this is a fucking gorgeous track. It's so beautiful, man. The melody and the strings, it's lush and beautiful. And that's something I want to hit on at the end here. For 1,000 Mothers, killer rocker, dark and heavy, grooving, proggy. This is probably the proggiest track for me on the album. And the other thing to talk about this album is the production is fan-friggin-tastic on this album. It is fucking amazing for 69. And the best thing about the album is you hear the bass on every track. You hear that the bass is in your face and it sounds so good. Bunker, again, incredible drummer. Just an amazing album, man. I'm going 9 out of 10 because things get better mostly from here. And that's hard to believe because this album, do not snooze on this album. It is a fucking killer album. The production is huge. It's fantastic. For a 50-year-old album, man, Ian was just, he just channeled in. And from now until about 1982, man, Ian Anderson was locked the fuck in. And I challenge you to find a better songwriter than this guy who was doing it all primarily. Yes, there's Jimmy Page. Yes, there are guys out there, but I'm just saying he's in that echelon of writers of songs, and this is the beginning of it. And love this album. I don't know if it's in my top 3, but it's definitely in my top 5 or 6, no doubt. So, all right, we're moving on to Andrew's.
Did you give it a rating? Did you give a rating? Did you give a rating?
Yeah, I said 9 out of 10.
Oh, you said 9. Okay.
Yep, 9 out of 10. And I see why you went 9.5. Totally get it. On any given day, mine could be that high as well, too. There's really, honestly, with the exception of maybe Fat Man and that's it. That's the only song I'm like kind of lukewarm on. And Fat Man's, help me out, I'm just forgetting. Is that a vocal or a non-vocal track?
Vocal. There's a vocal.
It is vocal. All right.
Fat Man. That's
it. It's just the one that's my least favorite. So now we're moving on to Patrick's favorite album. Not exactly.
I'm literally downloading it right now.
Now, one thing I want to mention about Benefit is that it was the second of the albums, I believe, that they put out, or third maybe, that they put out in these book forms. But somebody at Chrysalis pulled a boner big time because when the initial version of it came out, which I own, but I did not dig out of my boxes. Because, by the way, guys, I have the 40th anniversaries of all this, but I also have all the remasters and a lot of originals. So, yeah, probably 2-3 copies of everything on CD, which is stupid. But when the original version of this came out, the 3 CD version, I believe it is. 1, 2, no, it's 5. My bad. 5. One's a Blu-ray, and then not a Blu-ray, 5.1 DVD, and then 4 discs. When the original version of this came out, like idiots, Chrysalis decided, oh, let's save some money, and let's not put it in a book format. Let's switch it back over to one of these, which was fucking dumb because the first 2, Thick as a Brick and I believe Aqualung, come out and they're in these book forms, and then you switch it up to this, right? Well, Ian didn't know about it apparently and was not happy about it. So when and that thing was up to about 150, I found a copy at Soundgarden in Baltimore when I went down to see Paradise Lost. This is 2018. Went to see Paradise Lost and Solstice. A buddy and I met at Soundgarden at the store in Fells Point, and I found the original Digipack version of this, right? And it was going for like $150 at that time. I got it for $17. I was like, yes! I don't know what they're going for now, but they reissued this back in 2021 because Ian Anderson pitched a bitch and said they have to be uniform so everybody can put them on the shelf so they look like this. So there's a little tidbit on that. I'm not going to get into extras. We'll get into that later, but there's a lot of extras. This is the first one where they put a lot of shit going forward because there was a lot of extra stuff. So real quick on this one, comes out April 20th, 70. Recorded September of 69 through February of 70 at Morgan Studios in London, on Chrysalis and Island in Europe, and Reprise in America, Japan, and Oceania. Ian Anderson and Terry Ellis are the producers. Quick notes. I don't have any notes, so let's get into it, Eric.
Yeah, I first want to start off by saying I love this album cover. It's just a cool idea. And I actually just noticed right now, but Ian Anderson has like a little stand here underneath his one leg that he's standing on, which is kind of funny. Nobody else has that. Anyway, yeah, I love this album. Yeah, I just noticed that right now.
No, that's the
that's a mic stand.
That's a mic stand, yeah.
Never mind. Gotta get glasses, I guess. Anyway, yeah, I love this album. It's probably the closest to stand up in sound, but it does definitely kind of sound like a bridge between stand up and Aqualung. To me, it's the prog rock elements are kind of creeping in a little more. The songs are more complex. But I love every song on this one as well. With You There to Help Me is just an absolute ripper to start things off. I love that I don't know, it's just so kind of pastoral but kind of dark, that acoustic part, and Ian's vocal that comes in on top is just, I think he does like a double tracked harmony or something on there too. And it's just kind of almost not quite creepy is the word, but it's almost there. And then those parts where the guitar crashes in and he just goes crazy on the flute and stuff. Awesome song. Nothing to Say this is another example too of early like dual harmonized guitars start to come in on this album, which is probably all Martin double tracking. Nothing to Say has some cool harmonies and riffs and stuff. Inside is just kind of I don't know. I guess on the last album too is where they started to have really the mix of heavy kind of complex songs, and then they have these like little acoustic folky kind of numbers as well. Inside is one of those, but it's still just a great song. Sun is a heavier one as well. For Michael Collins, Jeffrey and Me, that's another mostly acoustic based one, but just amazing melodies on that one. Beautiful. Interesting lyrics and stuff as well. To Cry You a Song is probably the heaviest song on the album. Love that.
Yes. I fucking love that song.
That's when it sounds like Blind Faith.
Yeah.
Blind Faith, really?
Yeah.
I can see that totally. Yeah.
Huh.
One of their like heavier songs.
Hadn't thought of that. Okay.
Yeah, I can totally see that now that you say that.
I think it actually was. I think I heard it quoted where it was actually a response to a Blind Faith song or something like that. But I remember I just was going through the songs, listening to pieces of them, and that song I was like, going, this sounds a lot like Blind Faith. And then I looked at Benefit and it said that there was a response to Had to Cry Today. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I love the stops in that song as well, with the vocals, and then they all just kick back in. A Time for Everything. I'm having a little bit of a hard time kind of remembering that one right now, but that is a good song. I forget if the version I listened to actually the last few days didn't have Teacher on it. Teacher is on my copy of this. I guess
it was not on the original. It was
not on the original UK version.
No.
It was on the US version.
Okay, that makes sense. Was there a different song that was?
There's two different versions of the Teacher. There's the US and the UK, and there was a UK single version that came out that was not on the album, but then the US album version it was on, and they're both different.
I have that 45. It has a which is Promised and Teacher. Maybe we'll see if I can find it while
okay, cool.
Talking.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to remember if there was a different song to replace it or if it was just
left. No, it was off. No.
Okay.
They put it on the US version because they felt it was going to be a pretty good track to get on the radio, and it was.
Yeah, and that's a great song too. I didn't whatever version of the album I was listening to begin with for the first couple of years I heard this didn't have Teacher on it. So that was one I came to later, but that's a great song as well. Yeah, it's just not on there. Oh, you know what? Alive and Well and Living In. That's the other song that was on here instead.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's right. You're right. Yeah.
And I can't really remember what one that is right now, but let's see. Oh yeah, that's kind of like the more jazzy one.
Which song?
Alive and Well and Living In. It starts with piano and stuff.
You know what? I didn't listen to that one. Oh no, there it is. Yeah, that's the one that. It's very piano led.
Yeah,
kind of reminds me more of Thick as a Brick.
Yeah, I can see that. Anyway, sorry, getting off track a little bit, but Teacher is a great song. Yeah, love that riff.
It's a killer riff, man.
Awesome riff. Playing in Time is a really cool song as well. And is it, I guess, Saucity You're a Woman or Society? He kind of does it.
No, it's Saucity, but it's a play on words. He's talking about society as a whole.
The last chorus he says Society as well. But just a great album again. And probably, I don't know, this was my favorite Jethro Tull album for a while. I don't know if it quite is there anymore, but it's definitely top 5, I would say. And I'm going to go 9.5 on this one.
Nice. All right, Pat, I'm ready. Hit me with your best, worst shot.
Okay, well, I'll go find a single once I get a break. It wasn't in this box, but I do have the single's cool because it has Which is Promised and Teacher on it. And
Which is Promised, right?
It has a cool cover, but this is what the original. They were now on Chrysalis, which was part of Island. This is what the original UK label looked like.
I love those labels, man. They're so cool.
So this literally is my least listened to Jethro Tull album. And
boo!
I was sitting there. I was like going. What was it about this that made me not? So I went and I just listened to every song and I just took I just getting a feel for it again. you know. And there was just, to me, nothing that was for one thing, there was no hits on this song. Nothing. I don't think anything charted at all.
Well, Teacher did in the U.S.
Well, Teacher wasn't on the UK version. So
no, I know, right.
So, but I mean, there's nothing on other than Teacher. There's nothing on this album that he plays live or continue to play live ever that I'm aware of. There's nothing on this other than Teacher is on Living in the Past. Nothing is on the original Masters compilation. None of the compilations has anything really off of this album. So nothing. It just wasn't memorable to me. I remember listening to it and going, you know, it just felt flat to me. It was almost not like they mailed it in, but it was like he was struggling to find out what he wanted to be. I think he was just struggling on what he wanted the band to be. He went from, you know, then to stand up, and he needed something. I don't know if he was searching or if he didn't have enough time to write the material. I don't know. Nothing really stands out. The production's amazing. It sounds great. It's a great sounding record. But musically with the songs, it just did not connect with me. Now the next albums is a completely different story.
Sure.
You know, so if he would have continued on this vein, I probably would have, you know, dropped off. But it didn't. It completely shifted into the album that's coming next. So I don't hate any album. Well, that's not true. I do hate a couple. But I mean, for this deep dive, I don't hate any of the albums on this deep dive. But for me, I would probably have to give this a 6 out of 10. So.
All right, now for the opposite opinion. And as you said, it was important to mention one thing, what you said there, and you said it accurately and the best that you could. This album didn't connect with you. The songs didn't connect with you. And you pointed out that maybe that some of the stuff wasn't maybe in Ian's wheelhouse like later, because a lot of the stuff didn't make it onto comedy. I'm trusting you because I didn't actually go look at the comps or Living in the Past or anything, but I trust you on that. But I will say that, and by the way, I said this was 5 discs. It's actually 6 discs. I lied. It's got 2 DVD audios. One's a video of the 1970 Tanglewood concert on video, full, complete live show. That'll show you how much I didn't look at this for a while because I didn't watch it. I haven't never watched it yet.
I watched that. It's
okay.
It's an awesome show. Is
it? Okay, I got to watch it then. But it's also got the 5.1 mix of this Stephen Wilson. Obviously, these are all Stephen Wilson. Well, not all. Jacko Zaksic does some live stuff on a couple versions coming up. But, yeah, there's associated recordings and then 2 live discs on here and then the 2 DVDs. But, man, you know, I don't know how, and I'm going to fuck this up because I just did it by ear, but I don't know how you could say this is not memorable. Hang on. Come on, that is so fucking memorable. And then it's the, you know, he goes to flying so high. And then the harmonies come in and they do that line with harmonized guitars. Yeah. And it's fucking, I don't know. Again, I'm not denigrating Pat. He hears what he hears and likes what he likes, and that's totally cool. That's what this is all about. I fucking love that song. But anyway, getting on the actual tracks. With you here to guide?
Help me.
Help me. Sorry, man. My tongue's really hurting.
I'm here to help you, Jeff.
Matt, yeah, you are. Here you go. I'm getting tongue-tied. Such a badass tune. Lilting Forlorn. Then those heavy guitars come in and kick out Ian Anderson's killer verse on that. With you here to help guide me, da, 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 and you probably will. It's just another banger of a track, man. Martin Barr's leads and his melodies on here. Choice. So good. And then you've got the haunting flute, which is really killer on this track because Ian starts messing around with delays on the flute. And you hear all these fluttering, hanging flute notes. They're so fucking killer. It's just such an atmospheric track. I love that song. One of my favorite Tull tracks, With You Here to Guide Me. Love it. Nothing to Say. Another, and you mentioned it, Cool double-tracked harmonies on this. The guitar, very aqua lung-like chords on this song. Very aqua lung. If your ear hears these things after playing guitar for a lot of time, you start to pick up on that. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. Ian Anderson is a creature of habit, like all us guitar players. He definitely has some sort of Ian Andersonisms when he's writing songs. But it's what he does with all that stuff and how he dresses it all up around with all the other instrumentation that makes it special. Love the killer groove on this track. I fucking love Nothing to Say. Alive and Well, solid, indicates a path forward, kind of thick as a brick, aqua lungish on that one. Not my favorite. Sun is okay. That's definitely one of my least songs on the album, least favorite songs. For Michael Collins, Jeffrey and me, man, beautiful acoustic ballad, classical and folky. Love this type of Ian Anderson song. I just love it. Beautiful. To Cry You a Song, we just played it. It's fucking killer. It's a fucking killer track, man. A Time for Everything. Solid. Some interesting stuff going on, but the feedback section, I don't like on that. Inside, upbeat rocker, but kind of meh. Playing Time. Killer rocker. Dig the riffs. Huge on this one. Bouncy, groovy, and filled with guitar fills and riffs. And great drumming. God, really great drumming on this track by Bunker. And also a lot of tape speed manipulation stuff going on here, where they're speeding up and slowing down the studioizing, right? Wild solos and riffs. Love that track. Saucy organ and acoustic ballad, tale about society's rich and affluent who show off but haven't earned it. Great song, mostly acoustic. And then we talk about Teacher, man. You know, I was just playing it real quick there, if I remember it. By the way, I'm playing my old 1989 Ovation that needs a complete refret job, fret dressing, and the neck needs adjusted. It's fucking beat. I'm missing the pearlette on it because it fell off the other day. So it's a beat guitar. You guys don't see me play guitar on here much because I got a shitty guitar to play right now, but I think a new guitar is coming soon. I hope it gets here before I'm not here. If I get a good guitar, you guys are going to see me play some real guitar, and I'm going to play it well. So anyway, that's that. My little pat myself on the back moment there. Teacher was on the UK version. Killer track, super catchy. Could be a track off of Aqualung. It's in that
featured in Almost Famous. So there's a scene in Almost Famous. There's a scene in Almost Famous where they play Teacher. So yeah.
That's right. I love the song Teacher. I fucking love it. I recall it as one of those tracks, those early tracks along with Aqualung that I first heard, because this would have come out in 70, so it would have been 2 or 3 years old. I know that was on the radio in the US quite a bit, and I remember hearing it. Singing All Day, kind of funky, groovy, jazzy sort of track. Killer flute.
You're getting into the extra stuff now.
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I had to mention though, Witch's Promise is on here too.
Yeah.
I got to mention that song, man.
That was almost a double A side with Teacher and Witch's Promise as a single.
It was. It was on the single, yeah. And man, it's the intro flute to this. The intro flute to the Witch's Promise song is just badass, man. It's so good. Love the acoustic guitar. I love this song. It's one of my favorite Ian Anderson Tull songs.
Now, I'll give that 45 a 10. So I'll give Teacher and Witch's Promise a 10. So
what did you get benefit? I don't remember what you gave benefit.
I gave benefit as a whole a 6, but that 45 is a 10. It's a 10. The 45 is a 10. You know, hey.
You disappoint me, sir. I'm just kidding. One of my all-time favorite albums, Tull, so you know it's going to rate high. Ian Anderson takes full control. His vision starts to, from this point and from the prior album forward. You say he didn't have a direction. I disagree, but that's just me. I fucking love this album. It's a 9.5 out of 10 from me. I think it's some of Tull's heaviest tracks.
Definitely dark for sure.
Yeah.
But there is the great tracks on here outweigh the three songs I'm not crazy about.
I do like Benefit more than a Passion Play. How's that?
Okay. I gotta say, I didn't remember Passion Play, and it was the one I played most of all these albums. Liked it way better than I remember. Anyway, all right, moving on.
I will say one thing. I think Benefit for me is a little bit less consistent than Stand Up, maybe overall.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I agree.
But the high points are a little bit higher.
Super high. Yeah, that's a great point, Eric. I fully agree. The high points are as high or higher than on Stand Up, but the 3 tracks that are kind of do drag it down a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go 9.25 as a result. You're right. That's a great point.
Yeah, I probably should have said a 9 realistically too, but
I'm telling you though, the 4 or 5 great tracks on Benefit are fucking bangers. So, all right, moving on to this Big Daddy. This is the one that really breaks them huge in the States, globally, worldwide, European. This is Aqualung, comes out March 1971, recorded April 70 through February of 71. You see how the first album was recorded in a couple of weeks, second album was recorded in 2 or 3 months. Now we're talking over a year because they got to write the album, they got to tour, then they got to record, right? Recorded at Island Studios, Morgan Studios in London. We've got Chrysalis and Island in Europe, Reprise in America, Japan and Oceania, and it's again Terry Ellis and Ian Anderson. Couple quick notes: recorded at Island's new recording studio. First album with keyboardist John Evans. Also their first with new bassist Jeffrey Hammond. I believe they fired Glenn Cornick. I think there was some things getting in the way, partying, things of that nature. Or did he leave to go back to school? Is he the guy that left and went back to school?
I don't know. I can't remember what the circumstances of his demise was.
It might say down here. Let me get through this quick here. It's also the last to feature Clyde Bunker, who quit the band shortly after the release. Something of a departure from the band's previous work, the album features more acoustic material than previous releases and was inspired. The cover was inspired by a photograph of homeless people on the Thames River embankment, taken by singer Ian Anderson's wife Jenny. Contains a number of recurring themes addressing religion, along with Anderson's own personal experiences. Aqualung is Tull's best-selling album, selling more than 7 million worldwide. Generally well received critically and has been included on several music mags as best of lists. The album spawned 2 singles, Hymn 43 and Locomotive Breath. It's not really a concept album, according to Ian Anderson, although you could make the argument that it is relative to the distinction between religion and God. But again, he says that it's not. Aqualung's success signaled a turning point in the career of the band and went on to become a major radio and touring act. Real quick on it, here we go. Aqualung will be Hammond's first album with the band. It would also mark the first time John Evans was recording with them. They were also in Island's new studio at Basing Street in London. Led Zeppelin were recording their untitled 4th album at the same time. In an interview on the 25th anniversary edition of the album, Tull's band leader Ian Anderson said that trying to record in that studio was very difficult because of its horrible, cold, echoey feel. There were 2 recording studios at the location. Zeppelin worked in the smaller studio downstairs, while Tull got the larger, more reverby room upstairs, which was the main body was converted into from a church. The orchestral segments were by Dee Palmer again, who had worked with the band since this was. It would also be the last, as we said, album with Clyde Bunker, as he retired to start a family. Real quick on the artwork, it was commissioned and purchased by Chrysalis head Terry Ellis in 1971. Silverman, who was the artist that did it, paid a flat fee of $1,500 for the painting. There was no written contract, and the artist says the art was only licensed for use as an album cover, not for merchandising. He approached the band seeking remuneration for the additional uses, such as printing it on T-shirts and coffee mugs. I don't think he was initially rewarded for that. I don't know where that went from there, but the original artwork for both the front and back covers are missing. They were apparently stolen from a London hotel room or from Chrysalis's offices. I think that's about it. I'm not going to
somebody's house, man. Somebody has the artwork for Aqualung hanging on their freaking wall,
and you can't do anything with it. You can't do anything with it because if you try and sell it, you're going to get, arrested probably, right? Just wanted to say the inside artwork, which you see part of here.
I can show it when you pull.
Oh, right, that's true. You guys have it.
I can show 8 versions of it.
Real quick though, what does it say here? The original artwork for the interior gatefold painting was not taken during the robbery, and Terry Ellis holds that now. So there you go.
Terry Ellis still
all right,
alive?
guys. Huh?
Is Terry Ellis still alive?
Yeah, he is. He's still alive, or he was. He was at the time of that. I'd have to look. I'll check it out. All right, Eric, what you got, man?
Here, I'll just pull it up. Yeah, this is pretty cool. I love when, like, if you're gonna do a gatefold on a vinyl album, I like to see some like cool artwork or something in that. If you do a gatefold and it's just like a black thing with lyrics and stuff, I don't know, it's just kind of boring to me. But so that's
Terry Ellis
cool.
is alive. He's 79.
Cool. I mean, this is Jethro Tull's first masterpiece, in my opinion. Like, just straight up, basically a perfect album, in my opinion. I mean, and is this the first album ever? I know it's a big thing in metal and stuff to have like named sides of albums, because the first side is called Aqualung, the second side is called My God. I don't know if that was
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Did that maybe. But man, I mean, just I don't really know what to say about this. What can you even say about this? Anybody who's watching this, I'm sure, has heard this. I mean, this is their most famous album for sure. And just every song on here is great. Aqualung, to be completely honest, Aqualung, the song was, I wasn't crazy about it at first, to be honest. Some of the chord changes and stuff in there I thought were a little weird, because I was into like Black Sabbath and stuff by the time I heard this, and I wanted it to just like be, when that riff comes in, right, you want it to just kick in and be really heavy, and then it kind of, the piano comes in and stuff, and I was like, oh man, I wish it was just like stayed heavier. But I really love it now. Once I got used to it, it's just a classic song. A fantastic guitar solo from Martin Barr, of course, probably his most famous one. Cross-Eyed Mary is just awesome. It's cool. That one. Cheap Day Return is a little short acoustic kind of interlude thing, which was actually my alarm to wake up for work for a while ago. And I didn't end up hating it somehow. Mother Goose is a more acoustic based one. Interesting lyrics and stuff in that one. Super cool song. Wondering Aloud is another like short acoustic one. Up to Me is a super cool song, really like flute driven, that whole kind of melody and everything in that one. I'd probably say My God is my favorite song on this album. That riff is just so menacing, even on the acoustic guitar. It's a menacing riff, and then when it kicks in, and it kicks in a weird spot too. That's a thing Tull kind of like to do, is they kick in with the heavy guitars in like halfway through a bar kind of thing, and it takes you off guard, but it just absolutely rips. And then the crazy flute solo and everything, those chanted vocals, it's an amazing song. Hymn 43, like I said, is I think the first Jethro Tull song I heard, and it's kind of almost got a little bit of a country rock feel in spots, which kind of turned me off when I first heard the song. But I always liked that part. I'm drawing a bit of a blank right now, but where they kind of it's like a acoustic strumming thing with the drums and stuff. That's pretty cool, and I really like that song now. Slipstream, I think, is another short acoustic one. Yeah, minute and a quarter. Locomotive Breath is awesome, another one of their most famous songs. I don't think they play the piano intro on the radio usually, but man, the groove in that song is just so amazing, and the lyrics too are just so cool. His woman and his best friend are jumping off, Charlie pulled the handle, but the train, it won't stop going. It just slowed down. I don't know. Just an amazing song with a great flute solo in that one too. And then Wind Up kind of is a cool closer to the album as well. It starts off really mellow, but it comes in with a great heavy riff partway through as well, and some really interesting lyrics. Yeah, just an amazing album. I can't see any reason to not give this a 10 out of 10, to be honest. So there you go.
This is, of course, it's Stan.
I was trying to remember how to play My God. I can't remember. I know a little bit at the beginning, but I can't remember the chord that's coming up. That's what I was looking at. I was listening to you. I was trying to figure that out on there, and I can't quite get it. But what you got, Pat?
Well, as little as I had about Benefit, I have more than make up for it with Aqualung. I think I probably have 8 different versions of Aqualung. I'll quickly go through them. This is the UHQR Aqualung, the box set. This is the classic 45 RPM single-sided box set of Aqualung. This is I believe the original UK, which is on the Chrysalis. This is the original UK. I think this is the original US, which is on the Reprise label, the brown Reprise label. This is the quad version of Aqualung in quadraphonic 4-channel stereo. This is on.
He told me he had 8 versions of it.
This is the what is this? Oh, this is the German with the pink
Nice
cover. This is a cool cover. That's also a really good sounding version. And this is the DCC, the Direct Compact Classics. I also have the Stephen Wilson remix, but I'm not going to show that. But yeah, okay. So that's 7 there. I do have so 8 would be the Stephen Wilson. But anyway, onto this record. This record is perfect. I mean, everything about this record is perfect. Other than the recording is a little bit off, but I mean, the recording is not as good as Benefit as far as the production. But I mean, every song flows into each other. It has a purpose. Everything is in its place as it should be. I mean, Aqualung, what a great opener. And it flows into Cross-Eyed Mary, which is super heavy and is even heavier live. Live Cross-Eyed Mary is a showstopper.
Right.
And then probably one of my favorite things Ian Anderson's ever done is on Cheap Day Return, is just the playful acoustic guitar intro. And then when it kind of does this kind of like, I don't know, I'm not a musician, but this where it kind of goes down, and then he starts singing, goes, on pleasant platform. When he starts to sing and that thing just really always grabs me. I just always, for some reason, that's just always, his vocal when he comes into that just always grabbed me. I love A Cheap Day Return. Mother Goose, what a story. I mean, he really becomes a master storyteller on this record. I mean, Everything is a story. Everything just is perfect. Wondering Aloud, he's like questioning, and My God, another heavy. I'm just kind of going through it. So when it goes into that part in My God, where it just, the guitar comes in and it just hits you in the face. Hymn 43, I didn't know that was on Rock Band, so it's kind of interesting that was your intro to Jethro Tull was Hymn 43. Slipstream, kind of a more lyrical piece, and then it flows into Locomotive Breath. Another one of those songs that live was just phenomenal, absolutely stupendous song live. And then really where he sums up his feelings on basically religion on Wind Up, where he just says, I want the kind of God you don't have to wind up on Sunday. He doesn't, he really lays it out on the line, in a lot of these songs where he's just saying, you know what, man, organized religion ain't for me, and you guys aren't doing it for me. And I just always thought that everything about this record is perfect. I mean, it's a 10 out of 10. There's nothing I wouldn't change about this record. Not a single. The sequencing, the ordering, everything just flowed perfectly. It's absolutely. And as much as I've listened to this record and probably burned out on it, I could put it on now and listen to it start to finish and be happy. I've listened to this album so many times, and I just never get tired of it. It's just a perfect record. The musicianship is phenomenal. Absolutely.
So 10 out of 10?
10 out of 10. If I could give it an 11, I'd give it an 11.
Nice. Look at you making up for all that all that
benefit hate
right there.
Yes.
All right, man. Yeah, it's it's one of the quintessential. Without question, one of the quintessential albums of the '70s. Right up there with Led Zeppelin 4 and King Crimson. Well, that's the '60s album. I was going to say the first Crimson album, but it's just an amazing album. And unlike a lot of people, I don't really get sick of hearing Aqualung. And I get what you're saying, Eric, about some of the, I guess you'd call them unusual transitions. What I call them is pretty brilliant fucking songwriting is what I call.
It just took me off guard at first. It took me a while to get used to it, but
his use of semitones, where you're now. I just want to warn everybody. It's going to sound like shit because my E string after the fifth fret is buzzing really bad. But when you start hearing, you go, what you would think would be like a blues run, like Teacher. Wait a minute. Those are straight whole tones. But on Aqualung, he goes down to the third or the root note. Instead of going up a tone, he goes a tone and a half. So he goes.
Yeah.
And that sounds like shit. I apologize because I got a fucking terrible acoustic. But when you got very unorthodox note choices there, you talking about like rock bottom, it would be like, wait, oh shit, I'm forgetting how it goes. Down, 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 down. I forget how rock bottom goes off the top of my head. But you're talking whole tones. But Ian was doing weird shit with semitones that, a half a step as opposed to a whole step. He does that a little bit on the benefit track I played. With You Here to Guide Me, right? Or not You Here to Guide Me. What's the other one, Eric? Help me out.
Cry You a Song?
Cry You a Song, yeah. He's using semitones. And that makes such a huge difference with regards to how you're able to form melodies and do different things on the guitar when you're not just playing whole chords. When you're and he does it in a song I'm going to talk about in a minute up here with My God. That's mind-blowing, dude. It's just anybody that thinks Ian Anderson's an guitar player, go listen to My God. It'll blow your fucking mind. It's not and Aqualung, as a guitar player, it's like a masturbation song. It's like, oh my God, what is he doing there? I got to figure it out. And I haven't played these songs in years and years and years. So I'd have to sit down and retrain my brain to play them thoroughly on a better guitar. But it wouldn't take me long because I used to know these songs really, really well. So, man, just, oh my God. Aqualung, certified classic rock monster, bar none. Get out of here. It's a fucking monster track. Cross-Eyed Mary, same thing, man. It's just those riffs are just fucking crazy good on this song. This is kind of an anthemic one, right? Cross-Eyed Mary, da-da, da-da, and it's got the organ in there, doing the, following along with the guitar lines. Cheap Day Return, very acoustic, even has some accordion all over it, right? Who put accordion on a rock album back in the 70s? I don't know, maybe somebody, but they did. Mother Goose acoustic, that rhyming rhythm of the singing of the song is so catchy. Wondering Aloud, another short acoustic proggy track, really killer. Up to Me, it's just another banger, man. Another banger of a track. And then we get to the monster track on the album for me. My God is just, oh my God, one of the greatest fucking songs ever written in rock history to me. The chords he's using, the intro is that sort of acoustic intro thing where he's doing some noodling that is not noodling. It's very complex, stellar playing. And then he gets into that diminished chord, man. Oh my God. And the whole song is a critique and observation of modern religion of the day, right? The English evangelical Christian religion. And, you know, the acoustic passages are massive and so evocative. Possibly my favorite or second favorite Jethro Tull track ever. We're going to get to my favorite at the end. But it's probably my second favorite track of all time from Ian Anderson. Love it. My favorite on the album, Hymn 43. Kind of weird. Hear me out here. I hear some Rick Derringer on that song. It's almost got a little bit of Rick Derringer rock and roll hoochie coo sort of vibe. A little bit of Skinner. Love it. Great riffs. That chugga 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 da 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 da. It's just so good, man. So fits the song. Slipstream, nice little acoustic interlude, and Locomotive Breath, man. How do you not know that song? Ba da da ba ba ba. Ba da da ba ba ba. Amazing, amazing song. And Wind Up's a great, great closer, although it's probably my least favorite track on the album, crazily. But I love it. This is an amazing album. I think the production's solid throughout. It might not be quite as good as Benefit, but it's pretty good. The songwriting's amazing. Performances are amazing. Quality of the material is excellent. I'm going a 9.75. Not quite a 10, but it's close. It's right there. Maybe even a 9.95 or a 9.9. It's that close. All right. Moving on to this one. And we lost Eric. Where'd he disappear to? Okay. That's all right.
Maybe I had to go to the bathroom.
All right. So this is Thick as a Brick. And this came out March 3rd, 72, recorded December 71, through February of 72. They did not have a lot of time to put this one together because they were out on tour so much. They were just becoming this massive stadium band in the United States, right? And all over Europe. Recorded in Morgan Studios in London, on Chrysalis in Europe. Island now is not, I don't believe any other albums come out on Island, although it's part of Island's imprint.
Yes.
But it's kind of their imprint for Tull in a lot of ways. Again, Terry Ellis, Ian Anderson. It was recorded in late 71, featuring music composed by Anderson and arranged by the contribution of all band members. The album was the band's first to include drummer Barrymore Barlow, replacing the band's previous drummer, Clyde Bunker. Live shows promoting the album included the full playing of the suite with various comic interludes. And you got to remember, and a lot of American fans, and this may be why Tull was kind of a hard sell, and like they still are kind of thought of as a joke, but they were very much in tune with the Monty Python ethos of the 70s. Very much, they were all good friends with the Monty Python guys. Ian Anderson was. So that's kind of why I think that they get that rep. Considered by critics to be Jethro Tull's entire first progressive rock album. Tull's release, hold on, I missed that. But was a commercial success and it received mixed reviews upon release, but was a commercial success, top various charts in 72. Today it's regarded as a classic of progressive rock and has received several accolades.
But they didn't even want to be progressive rock. That's the funny part about it. It was
it was actually the exact opposite.
They were making fun of it. They were
pissing on it. Exactly. Yeah. But it became the thing that they didn't actually want it to be.
Careful what you wish for.
Anderson produced a follow-up to that in 2012 called Thick as a Brick Part 2. It's not that great, I'm going to be honest with you. Focusing on the adult life of the fictional character Gerald Bostock. I apologize, my tongue is really bothering me. And being released as Anderson's solo album instead of a Tull album. Anderson has also said that the album was a spoof to the albums of Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, much like what the movie Airplane had been to the movie Airport. And later remarked it was a bit of a satire about the whole concept of grand rock-based concept albums. Although Anderson wrote all the music and lyrics, he co-credited the writing to a fictional schoolboy named Gerald Bostock. Humor was subtle enough that some fans believed that Bostock was real. Reviewing the 40th anniversary reissue, Noel Murray suggesting that many of the listeners of the original album completely missed the joke. Now, when you look at this issue, it shows you right here. That's what it's on it. There's no individual track breakdowns, right? It's Thick as a Brick original album remix. This only has 2 CDs, by the way. And Thick as a Brick 5.1. New stereo mix by C. Wilson. And the original 72 stereo mix flat transfer at 9624 PCM. And some radio ads. And then the Stephen Wilson 5.1. So this is probably the most bare bones of all these 40ths because it's just two.
There's only one song. There's only one song.
Yeah. And they didn't have a lot of supplemental leftover stuff like they do for all the other albums. This one was just go in and record it. They didn't have a lot of time. They'd get back on tour. So, again, that was why it was recorded in like 3 months.
Yeah, there's no single for it. There's no B-side. There's no...
Right. But the funny thing is there's an edit.
Yeah.
Of the you hear that I really don't mind if I sit this one out. That's the very beginning, right? Of the song.
There is an edited version on this on the original Masters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. That's the one they always gets played on the radio or used to. But the interesting thing about this is that the 40th anniversary edition splits the suite into 8 separate pieces. Really don't mind. See, There Is a Sun Born, The Poet and the Painter, What Do You Do When the Old Man Is Gone, and from the upper class. You Curl Your Toes in Fun, Childhood Heroes and Stabs instrumental. See There a Man Is Born. Clear White Circles, Legends and Believe in the Day, Tales of Your Life, and Childhood Heroes reprised. That's the breakdown of the individual songs as Ian Anderson wrote them, but it doesn't really come that way on the album at all. All right, Erik, you're back.
All right. So, fun fact: this is the first record I ever bought.
Wow.
Yeah, picked it up. I want to say 2014, I think. Or it could have been 2013 in a record store in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. It was like, I'm pretty sure this is an original Canadian pressing, and it was like $16, and it's in really nice shape. I gotta say, this is like super cool packaging with the newspaper and everything that folds out. I haven't read it all, to be honest, but it's
do that with a box set CD. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, again, what do you say about this album? This is just, I believe this was the first album that was just a single song, basically. I mean, you could say it's 2 songs technically, but that's what they had to work with back in the day. You had 2 sides, you had to split it up. If it had come out in the CD era, it would have been 1 song. And it flows amazingly well, to be honest. The only kind of little bit weird transitional part is where they have to switch sides, that kind of part where you get the wind sounds and the organ kind of punching through a little bit. It does work, but it's kind of the weirdest part of the album for me. It's really masterfully done, honestly. The way they have so many different sections, and I can see it is interesting to see where they split it up in between the parts, because you could split it into different songs, but it just flows so well from section to section. I love that riff that comes in, the kind of not really heavy, but that kind of technical progressive riff. The part where he says, "See, a son is born," that riff in there, and those crazy, like, really fast air hits and stuff in there. I guess Jeff probably mentioned it. This is Barrymore Barlow's first album, and he just kills it on the drums from the get-go. I forget, I'm not sure if he was in any other bands before this. Maybe should have looked that up, but just fantastic.
Who's that?
Barrymore Barlow.
Yeah, he was. I would have to look it up.
This is the first thing he's credited on Rate Your Music anyway, but
oh, really?
Yeah, he did some other stuff after Jethro Tull, but as far as I can tell, this was the first thing he was on. But obviously he was already a fantastic drummer. Not that Clive Bunker was a slouch at all. I mean, Clive Bunker was an amazing drummer as well. But I feel like Barrymore Barlow was the perfect fit for where Jethro Tull was going at this point, getting into the more kind of progressive and technical type stuff.
Yeah, he played with Ian Anderson and John Evans as in a band called The Blades.
Oh, okay.
So he knew him before.
I don't know if they recorded anything.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
They were a beat band, the early 60s,
Okay.
mid 60s beat stuff where they were just doing covers mostly.
Right. That makes sense.
He was also thought of to be a replacement for John Bonham when he died.
Oh yeah. Cool. That would have been interesting. But yeah, just the way this whole album flows from section to section, there are certainly sections that I like more than others. My favorite ones, I mentioned that part, that fast riff that comes in a few minutes in, and then that maybe it was called Do You Believe in the Day, that kind of section with that really slow kind of plodding guitar riff that's kind of heavy, almost doomy in a way. But the whole thing just is fantastic, start to finish. This is an album where if you're going to put it on, you just listen to the whole thing. And I mean, it never gets old. It's another 10 out of 10, honestly, for me. Pretty much perfect.
All right. Sorry, guys. I was putting numbing gel on my thing on my tongue, so maybe that'll help a little bit. What you got?
I actually don't currently own a pressing of Thick as a Brick. I think I sold my EMI 100. My collection is very fluid. I get stuff in and I record it and I sell it and I get other stuff.
Sure.
So, but I have had several versions. And to echo what Erik said, for me, it's like goodbye Clive Bunker, hello Barrymore Barlow. I mean, Barrymore Barlow just absolutely takes the reins. And one thing about this album that I always liked is that everybody kind of had their moments to shine. There was everybody had their own spots. It wasn't just this or that. It was like everybody contributed and had their own. When you only have one song and it's like 36 minutes, you got to fill it up with, everybody would probably says, look, I want to do something too. But Barrymore Barlow to me really, really just comes in and establishes himself as a force to be reckoned with, and we'll definitely see that later on in the albums. But yeah, this was a great introduction for him. Vocally, I thought it was some of Ian Anderson's best vocal work. Also, I mean, he really kind of is becoming a better singer at this point in his career. And the lyrics that are on here are on point and really, really. He's such an intellectual, I mean, he's such a cerebral guy, he's such a cerebral guy, you have to actually just listen to the lyrics and think about it, and some of it's English humor and it takes a while to get it. Sometimes I have to look up some of that stuff because I don't understand what it means, but, and like I said, they were making fun of all this stuff and it kind of blew back and bit him in the ass because, it became a progressive rock classic. And that's the last thing they wanted to be known as was a prog band, But I mean, everything about it was cool. I mean, the whole newspaper thing that was unique. That's a huge thing to put out. I mean, you're pressing millions of copies of that. That's no small feat.
Yeah, it's thick.
Yeah, that's some serious bucks they put in. I mean, that your label's really behind you when they let you do something like that. I don't know what the sales figures were on Thick as a Brick, but
and not to mention a 142-minute song. I mean.
There's no singles. I mean, they're not going to get any single play. You're like going, all right, you want us to make a 12-page freaking fold-out newspaper for an album that you're making fun of progressive rock with no singles and 2 18-minute songs? That's a record label that believes in your ass, man. And then they followed up with what they followed up at. I mean, they were really pushing the envelope with freaking Chrysalis at that point, But yeah, so. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say. There's only 2 songs, and they're both great. I mean, Clive Bunker was a great drummer, but I think Barrymore Barlow fit better for where this band was going than Clive Bunker did. He had his limitations, and Barrymore Barlow did not have limitations. Barrymore Barlow is, he played for Robert Plant, played for Jimmy Page. He was on Kerry Livgren's album with Dio, but But yeah, I would give this a solid, probably an 8.5 out of 10. It would have been better if they could have structured it. It might have been better if they would have done the 8 sections like they did. They broke it out on the anniversary edition you were talking about. It might have done fit a little bit better for me if they would have broken it down. Because if you want to listen to Thick as a Brick, you're in for like a 40-minute deal. You can't just kind of listen to a song or two. You've got to listen to the whole thing. So.
Yeah, Zeb asked an interesting question here. Who was first with the newspaper front, Lennon or Tull? I'm
looking it up right now.
Look that up. Huh?
They're the same year. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay.
Tull.
Well, this was March.
Yeah, 3 months.
How about that?
Yeah.
Clyde Bunker did some excellent work with Gone. That's right, man. I love Clyde Bunker. I think he's amazing. But Barrymore is right in there. And then they got Doane Perry, who's amazing too. So I mean, a lot of great drummers in this band, a lot of great musicians. These were not just dudes. They were all great musicians. Ian was smart enough to know, hey, I got a lot of vision here, but I gotta have the right players to execute it, right? It's funny you mentioned the thing I'm reading here. This is pretty funny. So a couple of little excerpts from the classifieds. Brick. Urgently required, must be thick and well kept. Let's see. Gnome projector required. Home wanted for 14 bedroom suites. Must go to single buyer. 14 suites for a single buyer. Each designed with fitted radios. Right immediately to Kelvin Addit of 1221 Lindwell Road. There you go. Large judo suit. Must be complete with handrail and all fixings, including shopping tray, formica, woodtop, free arm, and floral tailored covers. Shower equipment needed by air travel expert Alan McKenzie. I mean, just all this silly Jethro Tull, Monty Python shit, right?
Yeah.
Very Monty Python.
An escaped non-rabbit from an experimental batch.
Yeah, exactly, man.
They have a review of the album in the newspaper as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's all satire and Monty Python-esque British humor. And like they said, a lot of people didn't get it. They just didn't totally get it, but it sold well. And I don't know, Eric, maybe you can look up what the sales figures were on this. I don't remember. I didn't write it down. Here you go. Here's one. Fun with Fennel. As an accidental spectator at last Saturday's game of Fennel, is there a game named Fennel? I didn't know that.
No.
At St. Cleveland.
It's a spice, isn't it? Fennel?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's a type of oregano or something like that. All non-sports enthusiasts to take. Recreational. I would urge all non-sports enthusiasts to take a close look at this recently revived local game. Though personally, I take little interest in sports of any nature, I would strongly recommend this game to the young and old alike. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. Editorial comment. We, the editors, would like to reply to a letter drafted by Mr. F. de Groot and Mr. H. Frapp, which was published in the blah, 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 blah. While we respect the opinions of these two gentlemen, it's just crazy, weird stuff. So like you said, what an undertaking to print up hundreds of thousands or whatever. They were a national band, so they were printing up on both sides of the Atlantic. They're printing up massive amounts of these. What did they sell, Eric? Did you find?
All I can find is U.S. certified gold 500,000.
I figure it's got to be a couple million worldwide.
It's got to be platinum.
Yeah,
platinum by now.
By now, for sure.
That's all there is on Wikipedia. But
yeah. So this album, I'm a prog rock nerd. You guys know that. Well, you do, Eric. And I love, Yes, Close to the Edge, and Crimson's In the Court of the Crimson King, and Genesis's The Lamb, and all that stuff. I love this stuff. This is not. I love this album. It's a great album, but it's not one of my favorite Tull albums. It's pretty dense. It's probably the most wanky album of theirs, with the exception of maybe Passion Play. We'll get to that. But it's a lot of recurring themes, right? A lot of recurring themes. A lot of recurring motifs that they develop and then they wank, and then they develop and then they wank, and it goes on for 42 minutes. I really dig this album, but I don't love it as much as a lot of Jethro Tull purists probably do. As it's essentially one long song, it's hard to pick out definitive moments in the entire suite, but it's pretty insane that it goes from acoustic rock with some hard rock tracks in the Aqualung vein to this sprawling entire suite of interlinked tracks. I do love this album, but weirdly, I'm not like I like the next one better. Yes, you heard that right. I like the next one better. And while I did mention the word wank on this, it doesn't feel like a wank fest like Tarkus, which I love that album too from ELP, but it's a lot of wanking. It's a lot of Keith Emerson just wanking the fuck out and drum solos. And, that's not quite like this. There is actual song structure to all these things. It's just they're interlinked with a lot of recurring motifs. Tull were definitely more focused, and the flow of the song structure on this piece is better than some of that stuff. Is it as good as Gates of Delirium on Relayer? Probably not, because that's my favorite Yes album and one of my favorite prog albums. Is it as good as, The Lamb Lies Down? Maybe, maybe not. It's in there. I do love this album. I'm giving it a 9.25, but I'm not going to pick it apart much because you really can't. It's hard to do it because it's not, as you said, Eric, and Raccoon just said it's musically challenging for most people. Yes, very dense. But it's one of those things you can't just sit down. You got to kind of focus on it. You can't be doing housework and at the end go, oh, what did I just listen to? Because you won't really.
Yeah, it's not background music.
Yeah, it's not at all. So, and then maybe that's the one reason that it kind of dips a little for me. But we'll talk about the next one next and why I like it a little bit more. Not a lot more, but a little bit. And most people would disagree with me. And I think both you guys are two of those guys, but we'll see in a minute here. Yeah, so 9.25 out of 10 for Thick as a Brick. Next up, we have a Passion Play. Again, these are all the 40s. This one has the complete Chateau d'Oroville, as Ian Anderson later called them, the Chateau Disaster sessions. And it has a new remix by Stephen Wilson, or new mix, excuse me. Oh, no, it's remix. And then a new stereo remix of the actual album. Now, I'm going to talk a little on this one quick, and then we'll get you guys in. July 13th, 73, this comes out. It was recorded March 73 at Morgan Studios in London. The original release is 4507. The remix is 30 seconds longer. I don't know why. Came out on Chrysalis, produced by Ian Anderson, Terry Ellis. Now, Passion Play is the sixth album by this band. It's a concept album comprising individual songs arranged in a single continuous piece of music, which was split into two parts across the original vinyl release's two sides. The album's concept follows the spiritual journey of a recently deceased man, Ronnie Pilgrim, in the afterlife, exploring themes of morality, religion, good and evil. The album's accompanying tour was considered the high watermark of Tull's elaborate stage productions, involving a full performance of the album accompanied by physical props, sketches, and projected video. The album was negatively received by critics upon its initial release, and I get that. However, the album was a commercial success, becoming the second #1 album in the United States. I find it crazy.
This went to #1, no frickin' way.
That's what it says. It's hard to believe, right?
No frickin' way.
Yeah. Following the release of the critically and commercially successful Thick as a Brick in 72, Tull made the decision to record this album at the Chateau d'Oroville studios in Oroville, I think it's Oroville, France, known in the 70s for being frequented by artists such as Floyd, Elton John, and T-Rex. The band was persuaded by management and accountants to record their album in tax exile outside the UK in order to avoid what Anderson described as a pretty scary tax regime at the time. A lot of bands did that. Led Zeppelin did it. David Bowie did it. A lot of Queen. The band planned to make a double album with concepts as varied as meaning of life, music criticism, and the comparison between the man and the animal world. Upon arrival at Chateau, however, the band faced a variety of challenges which made the recording sessions difficult. ranging from technical issues with the studio equipment to bug-infested beds. Ooh, I know what that's like. I had that happen once. Terrible. Bed bugs. Food poisoning epidemics causing Anderson to give the Chateau the nickname Chateau Disaster. Well, although the band has recorded enough material to fill 3 sides of the intended double album, the issues living in the studio convinced the band to abandon the sessions and leave the Chateau. Band considered moving the album production to Switzerland, but they had just recently been granted Swiss citizenship. However, the decision was ultimately made to return to the UK, completely restart the writing and recording the album, although 2 tracks from the Chateau session were later included in the band's album War Child. Again, this is broken down. On this one here, you'll see it's broken down into the individual tracks, but on the album, it was 2 sides. Real quick, and it sounds like we should have had Zeb on here because he knows a lot more than I think I know at this point about this. Zeb says the extra 30 seconds were cut due to the time constraint, sounding, and less dense. The difference of this album is that the hair interludes take too long. Okay. All right. Eric, talk about a passion play.
I was just looking at this little booklet or program thing that comes with it too. There's definitely still a lot of like satire on here. Like,
of course,
for instance, that all the band members are like credited in here as being in the play and whatever. Here's Ian Anderson, but he's called Mark Ridley, and he's wearing this weird hat and stuff. And I don't know. It's kind of funny. Yeah, this album is like ridiculously dense. It's just, this album is just nuts. And honestly, I need to listen to this some more times because I do really like it, but I still have not fully absorbed it, to be completely honest. If you thought Thick as a Brick was complex, I mean, this is just on a different level. Yeah. And it doesn't flow as well to me as Thick as a Brick.
I agree.
There's so many different parts that come out of nowhere and just surprise you. But there are some amazing parts on here too. And some of their heaviest and most technical, like riffing and stuff on here, just some of the guitar riffs and stuff are really kind of dissonant almost in spots. The story as well is really hard to follow. I will say my biggest complaint about this album is probably the same one that a lot of people have, which is the Hare Who Lost His Spectacles part is kind of just weird. And it's
weird, but it's great. It's weird, but it's great. And I would think
it's great.
I would think it'd be awesome if you were taking shrooms or you were fucking taking acid. It'd be like, whoa. Not that I know about that.
I can talk on this when I get to my.
Oh, you can? Okay. All right, cool.
It just kind of. I don't hate that part. It just kind of feels out of place.
It does.
Like the album is going, and then this just suddenly pops in, and then it's gone, and we're back to the normal part of the album, which is kind of strange.
I agree.
And yeah, it just doesn't flow quite as well as Thick as a Brick to me, but again, I love a lot of the parts on this.
Yes.
And I need to listen to this more for it to fully sink in with me. I have not played it anywhere near as many times as Aqualung or Thick as a Brick, so I don't have too much to say on it. But I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10 anyway because I do really like it.
Pat, I'm gonna jump in front of you just for 1 sec.
I will say one thing. Maybe I might honestly like it more if it had been a double album, like it was in.
Heck, you gave it an 8.5. How much more could you like it?
Pretty good.
That's a good score.
1.5. But I don't know. It's just like everything is so crammed in here so tightly that I think it could have been better if some of the ideas were allowed a little more time to kind of develop, if that makes sense.
Zeb has a great point here. He says, I think the hair, and he's right, was made for a breather for live performance of the album, to give the guys a couple of minutes to kind of recover and, you know, get a rest in before they finish the rest of the performance. And that makes sense. And it's in that weird Alice in Wonderland Monty Python sphere, right? It's in that sphere, right? But I wanted to point something out here that I just noticed when you were pointing out the program manual of the, you know, this thing, right? So if you look here, Martin Barr's character, look what his name is.
Yeah, Derek Small.
Derek Small. Who's that?
Spinal Tap.
Exactly. Oh. And Harry Shearer claims that, here's what it says, and this is interesting. Jethro Tull singer Ian Anderson has claimed that the name was derived from Derek Small, you know, the Spinal Tap character, Shearer's character, which appeared in the liner notes of the band's album Stick as a Brick and Passion Play. Asked by Anderson about the origin of the name, Shearer responded, "I don't know, it just came out of my head." Anderson recalls then asking, "I don't suppose, Harry, you happen to have a copy of Thick as a Brick in your collection at home?" To which he concluded from Shearer's reaction, and he knew I'd gotten to him right then and there. That's where it had to have come from. I mean, come on. There's no way. Who just sits around and goes, I'm going to make up this fictional bass player character. I'm going to call him Derek Smalls. You know, sorry, Harry, I'm not buying it. I think that's exactly where you got it. All right. Go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
All right, man. So after Thick as a Brick, Ian Anderson comes to the record company and says, "Hey, you know what? We're going to make an even longer album with 2 songs. But the good news is we're not going to have to do a whole newspaper. We'll just do this little libretto. So we're going to save you a few bucks here, but we're going to have no singles again. And we're not going to have anything that's even remotely resembling anything with commercial success." I will tell you, I will be perfectly honest with you. The last time I listened to this record, me and my friends got together in West Texas, probably smoked about frickin' 3 joints and said, we're going to listen to a Passion Play and finally get this thing. So we sat around, listened to the whole thing. At the end of it, we still did not get this thing. So that's
how old were you? How old were you?
I was 19.
Okay.
And so, well, I mean, the album had been out for a while. So, I mean, the album had been out for a while. But I mean, me and my friends had been talking, and we're kind of like going, you're listening to records, you're like going, "You got Passion Play? Yeah. What do you think about it?" I just don't get it. So we all decided we didn't get it. And so we said, okay, let's sit down one day. We'll all get high. We'll listen to a Passion Play. And we did. And I still didn't get it. I mean, there's great moments in it, but as an album to put on, it's literally not something that I reach for. I will probably listen to it again. Yeah, you're right, Zeb. It is time to replay.
He's right. He's right.
Know? So I have like been listening to bits and pieces of it, and so I do need to give it another shot. But I'm just saying, this is my last recollection was years and years ago, sitting down listening to the whole thing, and that was my take on it then. We'll see what happens when I have it out. I have the original UK pressing, and I will record it and I will listen to it, and we'll see what goes from there. But I mean, honestly, it's kind of in the benefit mold for me, like kind of a 6 out of 10. And like I said, but I can't believe the record company signed off on 2 in a row.
Yeah.
But I mean, but I was looking at the discogs of this, and every year they had a record out. I mean, that's so far we're on a pretty good run of records from start to finish, in your career. You can go even with something like, for me, you guys love Benefit, even for something like Benefit or Passion Play, these are still all, there's not really a bad record in this list. I mean, we're on what, record 6 now?
Yep.
And he's still.
And you make a great point. Ian Anderson had a lot of clout with that record company, because otherwise, I don't see how this happens. Because you're right, 2 in a row, they're almost completely uncommercial.
Yeah.
And although this one does have breakdowns of tracks, there's nothing in here that's super commercial at all. Okay, that changes on the next album. There's not an Aqualung. There's not a Cross-Eyed Mary or Skating Away. But I contend that Aqualung bought Ian Anderson this kind of clout. because that sold millions of albums and made them a huge cash cow. And guys,
but I think this might have made him got lost in his clout, and they said, "Look, you better bring me a couple of singles," which brings us to the 2 singles off of the next album that were insanely popular.
Right, we're gonna get there in a sec, and you're right. I think that conversation was had after this album, but here's the deal. Back to this. Like you, Pat, I kind of remember getting this and going, I don't get it. I don't get it. I hadn't listened to this in a long time. And I will tell you, I don't remember looking this one up. I mean, maybe you can look it up, Eric, while I'm talking. I don't know what it's going for now, but at one point, this was the most sought after and most expensive one that had gone out of print. It was, I think, $500 at one point. I doubt it is now, but it was crazy. I'm going to tell you, I listened to this 3 times in prep for this. And each time I listened to it, I loved it more and more and more. I think this album is fucking brilliant. I really do. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not commercial. It's just absolutely fantastic. You know why I really like it a lot? I mean, Pat, I think we've talked about this on your show or heard you talk about it. The jazz influence on this is really marked, very marked. And I love that because I'm a jazz dude. I love Miles. I love Coltrane. I love Wes Montgomery. I love, Don Cherry. I love Parker, all that shit. But I don't listen to it like incessantly like jazz snobs do. I love the intermix of fusion. And this is kind of an early fusion album in a lot of ways. Not metal, hard rock fusion. It's a fusion of jazz and prog rock. And man, there's some absolutely amazing songs on here. And I agree with Zeb. You got to go back and make yourself listen to it a couple times. If after the 3rd listen, you're like, yeah, just ain't happening, then I fully respect it. But I think you do need to do like I did and make yourself listen to it and go, oh. I loved it. And I agree with Eric. Maybe the only criticism is the Hair That Lost the Spectacles interlude is a little long. It kind of breaks it up. Strangely, especially on a CD where it's all one running order. But I think on the album version, it might have been a little less obtrusive, I guess, if that makes any sense. I got to tell you, man, this one shocked the shit out of me. I'm going a 9.5 out of 10. That's how much I dug this.
Wow. Isn't that the highest you've given anything so far?
No, I gave Aqualung a 10.
Okay.
And I got 3 more coming up that are actually above that. So
you can't get higher than 10.
No, they're above. No, they're above 9.5. Above 9.5.
You know what's weird is this album is like it's fluctuated for me. It's like up and then kind of down and then up and then kind of down. Like each time I listen to it, like the first time I listened to it, I was like, what the hell is this? The second and third times I listened to it, I really liked it. And then the last time I listened to it, like yesterday, I think it was, I don't know, it kind of just boggled my mind again. I'm like, I don't know what it
is a little mind-boggling.
I was at work though yesterday when I was listening to it, so I think I got to just sit down and pay full attention to it again.
I bet you absolutely, even more so than Thick as a Brick, you've got to focus on this one a little bit.
Yeah.
It's got to be a listening experience. You can't be, doing whatever outside of it. You got to really focus on it. I like what Zeb has to say, man. Without Hair, it's a 10 out of 10. I'm close to that, dude. Again, let me apologize for my mouth sore issue with my tongue because it's really affected my ability to talk.
I can't hear any difference in when you're talking.
Well, so I'm definitely slurring. I'm slurring on my left side.
I will say you were asking about the box set for that one. There's one copy on Amazon for like $175.
Okay, it's come down a little bit because at one point in time it was $350, $400. The one I saw recently that wowed me was Song from the Wood. That was still the high mark. And I remember a while back, because it came out in 15, so 7 years ago, I believe, was Minstrel was way up there. I think it may have come down too a little bit. So I think a lot of people bought multiple copies of these, held them for a while, and then started to hit the Discogs and the eBay shit, and they've come down a little bit since then. So yeah, man, I got to tell you, this is what I wrote. This album never gets pulled out by me Yet when I listened to it for this deep dive, I honestly think it's far better and weirder than I recalled, and actually better than Thick as a Brick. It's jazzy. It's electronic. There's electronic bits at the end that are really cool. Proggy, rocky, acoustic. It's all over the place, experimental, and quite damn good. So I agree with you, Zeb. I don't know if I'm going full 10, but I went 9.5. I don't know. Without hair, I'd probably bounce it close to a 10. All right, next up. Oh, wait, no.
No.
I got
there you go.
So, War Child is next. I'm trying to move fast for you, Pat. This is released October 14, 74. Recorded December 30, 73 through February 74 at Morgan Studios. London, except tracks 6 and 10, which were recorded in 72, and tracks 8 and 15, which were recorded September 72 at Chateau d'Orval, whatever, sorry. This came out in Chrysalis only, produced by Ian Anderson, Terry Ellis. The band began recording songs for this album on December of 73. I'm sorry, December of 73, not 72. Starting with Ladies, they recorded the third Hurrah, along with the outtake Paradise Steakhouse on December. All right, I'm not going to get into all that. Hang on. Some of this stuff came from the Chateau Disaster tapes. According to the liner notes in the 2014 Theater Edition, War Child, which is this one, I believe. Yeah, the 40th. The studio equipment worked. The sound in the studio was very workable, and the atmosphere within the band was very settled and productive. Only Solitaire and Skating Away were recorded earlier, as detailed below. The album prominently features Dee Palmer's string orchestration. A lot of orchestration on this. Across an eclectic musical set, the band members, as the two predecessor albums, playing a multitude of instruments. The music is lighter, more whimsical than the darker Passion Play, with hints of comedy in the lyrics and music structures. Although the lyrics still unleash lashing critiques of established society such as Queen and Country, and Bungle in the Jungle on a religion. Bungle on the Jungle of established society and religion in Two Fingers, and the critics, music critics, in Only Solitaire. All right, buddy, you ready, Eric?
Sure. So I don't own this one yet, right. But I will probably pick it up, to be honest. This was one of my least listened to Tull albums from this era. But going back to it, I enjoyed this quite a bit. It's definitely they took a step back from the prog rock kind of elements. Way
a little more commercial.
Yeah, absolutely. I would almost say this is their most straight up kind of hard rock album in a way, or at least since maybe Stand or something.
Yeah.
There's a good mix still. It still sounds like Jethro Tull. They throw in a good mix of like acoustic songs and kind of hard rock songs. But honestly, I enjoy every song on here, but I don't enjoy any of these songs to quite the same extent as a bunch of the other albums that kind of are around this period. That said, War Child is a cool song. I really like the riff in that one. Sea Lion has some really cool riffs in it too. That's one thing that really stands out on this album to me is Martin Barr's riffing. Just there's a lot of great riffs on this album. The
Definitely.
Songs are much more kind of straightforward. They don't have very many sections to them. They kind of have one or two parts that they alternate back and forth between, and kind of stick in that zone. Skating Away on the Thin Ice of the New Day, I think that was the most famous song from this album, probably, and was kind of a for a while, right?
I would say Bungle.
Well,
Bungle.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two, and those might be my two of my favorite songs on the album for sure. Skating Away on the Thin Ice of the New Day is mostly just acoustic, but the melody in that one is just so memorable. Yeah. Probably my favorite song on the album. Two Fingers is a great song too. Really kind of funny, interesting lyrics in that one as well. Yeah, this is again one of the albums that I have not gone back to a whole lot, but now that I have a couple more times, I really enjoy it every time I listen to it, and I'm probably gonna have to pick it up at some point. I'd give it probably 7.5 out of 10, maybe leaning towards an 8. It's just a fun album to listen to. Nothing that you have to like pay anywhere as near as much attention to as the last couple albums.
Yep.
But
agreed.
Enjoyable all the way through.
All right, Pat, what you got?
Okay, this is what the original U.S. Pressing looks like. And if you're looking for the U.S. and the U.K. pressing, were both mastered by George Peckham. Also, see Porky and the Dead Wax, that's George Peckham. So don't go buying a U.K. pressing. You can just get the U.S. pressing and to get the same mastering. The original mastering was done in the U.K. by George Peckham, but the U.S. got those same plates. So War Child, this was my introduction. I was, like I said, Bungle in the Jungle was the first thing that I heard when it came out. It was, I think that was the record company saying, you need to give me a single. And this was kind of like Ian Anderson saying, okay, you want a single and make something really, really silly, Bungle in the Jungle. And it actually worked because it was a huge hit, massive. To me, this is like the first incarnation of kind of like the Hobbit rock or Celtic rock, of Jethro Tull begins on this record. This is where you start to hear the Celtic kind of, British folk influences on it, on this record, but combine that with, like you said, Martin Barr, heavy guitar playing. The guitar is front and center on this record by far. On Backdoor Angels especially, and Sea Lion, you can really, really hear, the heavy guitar, and that Martin Barr is definitely in the band and ready to go. War Child, the opening track, is good. It's got that Celtic feel to it again. Queen and Country is a really great song. That's one of my favorites. One of my favorites off this record. Ladies, another great song. Skating Away on the Thin Ice of the New Day. That's on all the greatest hits, and it's it's not my favorite. I like the song, but it's not my favorite on this record. Only Solitaire to me feels like it could feel right at home on Songs from the Wood. I think you could drop that song into Songs from the Wood, and it would just be perfect. It would be like, okay, it fits here. It fits right here. This album is like a setup for Songs from the Wood for me. I mean, it's almost the precursor to Songs from the Wood. The Third Hurrah is another great song, and Two Fingers is a great way to end it. The Third Hurrah is just basically War Child, like a reprise. I think that it's kind of like a reprise of War Child, and then Two Fingers is a good way to end the record. Like I said, this is there was the period of Jethro Tull, like the Songs from the Wood and Heavy Horses, and this kind of goes with. I don't count Minstrel in the Gallery in the same way. Minstrel in the Gallery is a totally different style than this, and Songs from the Wood and Heavy Horses. Minstrel in the Gallery kind of stands on its own as stylistically with Jethro Tull, but this Songs from the Wood and Heavy Horses, all three of these are kind of like what I call like the Celtic Hobbit rock trilogy of like Jethro Tull. And I would give this probably an 8 out of 10.
All right. So yeah, on the theater edition, again, I want to reiterate, because Zeb was talking about tracks about, the Chateau points and all that stuff like that. We're going to get into that in episode 3 when we break down these 40th anniversary bonus tracks, where we don't have to focus on the albums. We can focus on just the bonus stuff, which you can find it all out there on YouTube, and you can just find, may not be the most aesthetically ear-pleasing versions to listen to, but you can find it all out there if you don't actually own these. And this one I remember getting, and it was pretty widely available, and then it went out of print, and you couldn't find it, and it jumped way up. I don't know what it's going for now, but for a while it was up in the two bills range. So, so we're not getting into those leftover tracks much here, but this one is better than I remember it. But I disagree with you, Patrick. I get a little bit of Celtic in there, especially on one track on here. But I don't really think this is the real Jethro Tull folk trilogy, as most Tull purists would think of it, is Songs from the Wood, Heavy Horses, and Stromwatch. I see this as a bit as a precursor, but the weird part about that is that in between you have this one, which is not like that at all.
Nope.
Okay. And then you have this one, which is, well, we're going to get to that. Okay. I think you can tell by that it's not a favorite of mine. But this is much better than that. So let's take a look at this. War Child, great track, great opening track. War Child, dance away, blah, blah, blah. I don't know the lyrics to this stuff very well. Great opening track. And then you get To Queen and Country. Just a great rocker, man. So good, right? Ladies is a good, nice little kind of moderate rocker track. Backdoor Angels, if I remember correctly, I believe that was a single. It's a good rocker. I don't love it. I like it. I don't love it. Sea Lion, man, that's a kick-ass track. Great riffy rocker. Some great guitar on it by Martin Barr. Skating Away. I don't know if you're alive and you've listened to rock radio or FM radio for the last 40 years, like old guys like Pat and I have. You've heard Skating Away many times.
Oh yeah,
love it. It's a great track. It's a wonderful track. Bungle, again, rinse and repeat what I just said about skating. Because that's bungle in the jungle, and that's all right by me. Like the lions. It's just so good, man. And we haven't really mentioned it, but Ian Anderson has such a cool, unique vocal. His vocals are just raspy, scathing, but very beautiful when he does the more acoustic-y, mellow. So he's just got a really cool voice. It's not as good these days because he's 77 years old. But, man, he was firing on all cylinders back here. Only Solitaire, like you said, that would fit in on the Songs for Wood. And I got to say, you're going to laugh, man, but the Third Hurrah is my favorite track on this album. It's a jig. It's a da 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 da. It's a polka almost, like a rock polka, right? It's like War Child, da 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 da. Fucking awesome track.
I could see little small people dancing around a Stonehenge in Spinal Tap.
Yes, around a Stonehenge, exactly. Druids, no less, right?
Yes.
I don't remember Two Fingers, and that I think is my only problem with this album. Two Fingers, Ladies, Backdoor Angels, Only Solitaire, a little bit forgettable for me overall, but maybe it's just I didn't connect with them as intensely as some of the other stuff that I re-listened to. I'm going to give this a 7.75 out of 10. 7.75. Really good album. If you're a Tull guy, you're going to enjoy this a lot. It's a little more commercial, a little more orchestrated. There's a lot of orchestration on it. Dee Palmer, very instrumental in that. Again, War Child, Skating Away, Queen and Country, Sea Lion, Bungle, Third Hurrah. So 6 out of 10 tracks on here are fantastic tracks. So at minimum, I give it a 7.75 because I'm probably not giving enough credit to Ladies and Backdoor Angels. And could it go up if I listened to it a little bit more? Probably would. Yeah. Yep. All right. Next. We're moving on. A Minstrel in the Gallery released September 5th, 75 in the UK. September 8th, 75 in the US. Recorded May of 75 through June of 75 at Maison Rouge Mobile. And we'll get into why that is in a minute. Monte Carlo, Monaco. Chrysalis label and Ian Anderson producer. So it's the A Studio. The album sees the band going in a different direction from the previous work, War Child. I think it's very different. Returning to a blend of electric and acoustic and more. This is the closest I think they sound to Aqualung on this album. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but this is a lot more like an Aqualung album to me. Okay, overall, to contextualize it. And again, it says this returns to a blend of electric and acoustic songs in a manner closer to their 70s album Benefit and Aqualung and Thick as a Brick. making use of a newly constructed mobile recording studio, commissioned and constructed specifically for the band. The album was the first Jethro Tull album to be recorded outside the UK, being recorded in tax exile in Monte Carlo. Because remember, they went to Chateau d'Orville, but then they came back to do Passion Play and War Child. It was the last Jethro Tull album to feature Jeffrey Hammond, who would replace Glenn Cornick, who left the band upon completion of the album's touring in late 75 and was replaced by former Carmen bassist John Glasscock. In late 74, upon completion of the touring of the band's seventh album, War Child, the band returned to the idea of recording outside the UK, with Ian Anderson commissioning the creation of this mobile. The mobile studio was constructed by engineer Robin Black, and Morgan Studios engineer Pete Smith. Was christened the Maison Rouge Mobile Studio and was transported in April 75 to Monte Carlo, Monaco, where the band would record the album in the Prince of Wales Hotel. Anderson rented a home in LA in December 74 to finish the writing of the album, where he was joined by orchestral arranger, future Jethro Tull member Dee Palmer, to assist in finalizing string arrangements. Anderson believed that the band were undergoing a tense period during the recording of the album and were not getting along well, a recollection that other band members have disagreed with. In particular, Anderson felt that the rest of the band was distracted by living in the seaside resort of Monaco. I wonder why. Like, what would
be distracting in Monaco? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, what would be distracting? I was full of industry and activity, writing songs and working very hard. I think the others felt as though it was a holiday as well as a recording session. I wonder why, Ian. You were writing everything. I wonder why. Love you, but think about it, right? I think challenging Anderson's recollection, guitarist Martin Barr stated that, however we behaved, we were in a very alien situation. You can't just think we're here to work and nothing else. But the band got on great, and I don't recall any great fiction at all. It's just that Ian took it all very, very seriously. Barrymore Barlow agreed, describing the time in Monaco as happy days. Anderson found himself unhappy in Monaco, with his ire drawn mostly from the residents. It made me sick getting up in the morning, watching all these people lying on the beach with their amazing vanity. Most of them were all really ugly people, physically grotesque. The women were unattractive and the men were obscene. And they do nothing. I get very aggressive in that sort of situation because I've got a lot of things to do. Interesting note, and you brought it up, Pat. Ian Anderson is a very driven man. As an artist, as a businessman, he's a very driven dude. He got into salmon fishing, and he owned one of the most lucrative salmon fisheries in Scotland, I believe, or maybe it was the UK, I forget which. Very, very much a businessman, man. This dude made a fuck ton of money. He owned a giant farm and a manor. He's a no fuck around type of guy, man. He's like, I got shit to do. So watching all these people lay around and get drunk or smoke and drink or whatever the deal was, although he smoked back in the day, probably I can see why that would be a little irritating to him, because he is driven to produce, right? So we'll go from there. Erik. Hang on.
Yeah. I don't know what pressings any of these are. I'm not as much of a nerd about that yet, but I always thought this was kind of interesting. It's like a vertical thing on the back, so like if you turn it on this way, it's upside down. Another interesting thing, I believe, I was just looking it up as well, but this was right around the time that Ian got divorced as well. Right. So maybe he was just kind of grumpy in general, could have something to do with it. At this point, seeing all these people around that are just happy, and meanwhile he's not, kind of thing. Man, this is extremely cohesive album to me compared to War Child or even a Passion Play, kind of, in a way. And I never thought about equating it to Aqualung until you said that, but I can totally hear that. I really love this album. It's interesting as well because the the first bunch of times I heard it, there were certain songs that I instantly loved and instantly grabbed me. And then there were a few other ones that I didn't really connect with for years, to be honest. And then just in the last couple of years, they've really grown on me to the point where I love the entire album now. And one thing I will say on this album is Barrymore Barlow, as fantastic as he was on the previous 3 albums, this is like where he really kind of starts coming into his own even more, in my opinion. Just amazing drum performances on here. And Martin Barr as well is just completely on fire.
He's on fire on this album.
The entire band, to be honest, on this album is just firing it on all cylinders. You start things off with Minstrel in the Gallery. It's so cool the way that song is structured. You have the acoustic part in the intro, and then that guitar kicks in. Martin's guitar is just like so heavy, and those weird rhythms, the weird dissonant chords that he throws in there, it's just such a stop-start kind of schizophrenic almost type of thing where it's just jumping around all over the place.
Like a bunch of horses coming down the freaking track.
Yeah.
It's like...
But then the cowbell comes in and just everything locks into that groove. And then the lyrics come back and it's the same lines as the acoustic part in the intro, which I always thought was pretty interesting. But man, that song, and also another thing, let me just bear with me for a second here. That song is over 8 minutes long. And it feels like 4 every time I listen to it. And that's a theme with with a couple songs on this album, to be honest. It just flows so well. Amazing song. Cold Wind to Valhalla is another one of my favorite Jethro Tull songs. I mean, it's just, the lyrics help, but even without the lyrical theme, it's just an epic sounding song. The chord progressions and stuff in there. And I love, this is another example too, like I mentioned with My God earlier, where the heavy guitars kick in a weird spot. Like he starts the second verse and then they kick in and really just like, just kind of blow you away. And those leads on there, those screaming leads from Martin Barr and the drumming, just amazing. Black Satin Dancer, again, it's almost 7 minutes, but it feels like 4 minutes to me. And some of the riffing on there is just
super dark.
Yeah, doomy almost, kind of close to Sabbath levels of heaviness when it slows down and he goes down to the lower octave on the electric guitar. Great structure to that song as well, just flows super well. Requiem is one of the acoustic songs on this album. You get kind of 2 in a row here. That was one of the ones that didn't really grab me at first. Honestly, it was really the first 3 songs on this album that instantly clicked with me, and the rest of it kind of, I wasn't too crazy about at first, but I love Requiem now. And One White Duck / 0 to the power of 10 equals nothing at all. This song, I'm pretty sure, is about Ian's kind of divorce, the end of his relationship with his wife. And the lyrics in this song are just like really poignant and kind of fascinating, really interesting analogies for kind of the 2 sides of a relationship and how they don't mesh sometimes. But yeah, that's a fantastic song. Another acoustic one, but it works really well. And then you get Baker Street Muse, which I think is their longest song besides A Passion Play and Thick as a Brick. 16 minutes, or close to 17 even. And I don't know, this one, I guess maybe it was because I had listened to Thick as a Brick quite a bit, and then this one is kind of less dense than even Thick as a Brick. it takes a little more time. It's a little, it has more space to it, kind of.
Yeah.
And but it works really well. I will say it's not one of my absolute favorite kind of prog epics. It doesn't flow quite as well. Maybe there are certain transitions where you go, okay, this, and they are labeled in here too. There's 4 different sections, and you can kind of hear where it switches, and it could almost be a different song, but they come back around to the end with some revisiting some of the themes and stuff. And I love that main riff that comes in after the chorus. And I always got a kick out of the part at the very end where you hear Ian finish the song, and he or the start too, where he like starts playing it and he's like, shit, take 2. And then at the end where he like can't get out of the studio. That was kind of funny. And then Grace is just like a 30-second little thing at the end of the album, which doesn't do a whole lot for me, but it's only 30 seconds, so I can't complain about it for too long. Yeah, overall, just a fantastic album. I would give this a 9.5 out of 10.
Wow. All right. How about you, Pat? What do you think?
You know, this is probably going to be no better sees this, but I mean, I honestly think that during this time period that Ian Anderson had been listening to some Frank Zappa. I think there's some
not a bad point at all.
You know, on this album especially, you know, just the way the songs flow, or you know, the way they're set up reminds me a lot of like Frank Zappa, very Zappa-like, with the English twist to it. You know, but a lot of the way they go, because One Size Fits All wasn't out yet, but I mean, Apostrophe and Overnight Sensation had been done before this came out. So I could totally see him taking that, because this album doesn't sound like anything else in his catalog that I can think of. It sounds completely different. And, you know, Minstrel in the Gallery, I mean, that's a great start. And the part about Barrymore Barlow coming in, you know, was perfect, you know, and then that cowbell, you know, I mean, but it starts off with "My lords and ladies," you know, and then you just it sort of goes from there. And I love "Cold Wind of Valhalla," another song that definitely has that, to me, that Zappa-esque feel to it. Black Satin Dancer, the mellow part, and then it kind of builds and builds and builds. I like that one a lot. Requiem, I'm kind of iffy on Requiem, and I'm also kind of iffy on One White Duck and 0 to the Power of 10 = nothing at all. I honestly tend to kind of skip over those songs when I listen to this record. Baker Street News I love. I absolutely love Baker Street News. I've always loved that song. It just always grabbed me, and I don't mind sitting for 16 minutes and listening to that song. But the production on this, I think, was really, really well done. I thought the production was excellent on this record. Grace is just, you know, it's just kind of like a mellow 30-second song, but honestly, to me, this was kind of like a Frank Zappa-esque type feel to it. And again, now we're on the seventh album in a row by this band, and we still have not gotten to a shitty record yet. We haven't gotten to anything that I don't think any of us would consider to be a bad record. You know, that's going to change probably.
We're getting there. We're almost there.
Very soon. But, you know,
very soon.
This is a great 7-album run for anybody.
Oh yeah.
You know? I mean, this is like just amazing 7-album run. But yeah, I would give it. This would be a 9 out of 10 for me.
Nice. All right, I love this album, man. It's in my top 3 of Jethro Tull albums. Man, Minstrel, Jesus. Hello, Martin Barr. Martin Barr. Good Lord, man. He's fucking tearing it up on that song. Are you kidding me? Wow, just some of the riffs, man. You know, it starts out with the acoustic intro, right? Which is, you know, Minstrel in the Gallery. You know, da 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 da. I wish I knew the lyrics, guys, but with my illness, it's hard for me to memorize stuff. So I literally have to sit down and concentrate on it for days and days and days. But, you know, just so many great, you know, how, like you said, Eric, he's doing the da 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 da, and then he gets the Da, 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 da. Then he's doing the sort of the Spanish sort of guitar, sort of stroking, or not stroking, but strumming. And it's just got this weird, almost off kilter way of just creeping up on you how good it is. Then it gets to the you know, it's got so many sections to it. And I agree with you. I mean, I didn't think of this at all. So I'm glad you did, Patrick. That song is very Frank Zappa-ish because it's almost unorthodox, but it all works. And then you get into the, you know, the minstrel in the gallery. And it's just so damn good, man. One of my favorite. I always say this every deep dive. Oh, it's one of my top 3 songs. That's one of my top 5 songs. It's definitely way up there.
You can have 100 top 5 songs, you know.
Yeah.
What's that?
You can have 100 top 5 songs. That's fine.
Exactly. 100 top 5 songs.
Going to hold you to the flame.
It's my live stream. I can make the rules up, right? Cold Wind to Valhalla, man. On the Cold Wind to Valhalla. So damn good. Love it. The Valhalla. You know, he does that little, he's got a lot of inflections in his voice throughout that song. It's beautiful. Very wistful, very mysterious sounding, right? Mysterious. Black Satin Dancer. Love it. Dark. Brooding. Moody. It's a moody track, right? Requiem. You're right. That's kind of a forgettable track. I'm sorry, dudes. One White Duck on a Wall? You don't love that song, Patrick?
No, I don't.
Oh, One White Duck on the Wall. I fucking love that track, man. And then you got For the Baker Street News. I love this album. 9.75.
Wow. It is in your top 3.
I love it. All right.
This next one's not going to be in your top 3.
It is not going to be a 9.75 at all. But anyways, the other thing to mention about minstrel is there's a lot of classical influence in that, particularly with the orchestrations on it. It's just it's so good, man. So good. So now we're getting to this album. And this album, Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die, with Ian Anderson on the front there, giving the old FU.
Up the irons.
Right. Comes out April 23rd, 76 in the UK, May 17th, 76 in the US. Recorded November 75 through January 76. Recorded Maison Rouge, the mobile. Monte Carlo by, and tracks 8 and 10 were recorded at Morgan Studios in Brussels. Chrysalis, Ian Anderson, producer. The first album to include bassist John Glasscock, who also contributes backing vocals, Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die. It's the last Jethro Tull concept album, allegedly, which follows the story of Ray Lomas, an aging rocker who finds fame with the changes of musical trends. It was Jethro Tull's only album of the 70s not to achieve gold certification. There's a reason for that. Like their previous album, Minstrel, the band recorded the album in Maison Rouge Mobile Studio. They recorded Too Old to Rock and Roll, Checkered Flag, along with the outtakes Salamander's Ragtime, Commercial Traveler, An Advertising Man, an unfinished backing track. In 75, Big Dipper. In 76, Pied Piper. I don't know. This is a lot of details. I'm not going to get in on that stuff. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get into that. So the background is Tull's frontman Ian Anderson says the point of the album was to illustrate how his style of music may go out of popularity with every other fashion and fad, but he's determined that if he sticks to it, everything comes back around. He's kind of right, and the style will rise again. Anderson explains that the concept came from the turmoil, the rise of the punk movement, because this is right before punk started to happen or when it was happening. It was not meant to be an autobiographical of him as an aging songwriter. Although some members of the press took the album as our attempt to get with the punks, Anderson also stated the basis of the concept is to point out that this business, music, fashion, is cyclic, and if you stick around long enough, you do come back into fashion. Originally intended to be a rock musical, the story would follow an aging retired rocker named Ray Lomas. winning money on a quiz show, trying to commit suicide, and waking up years later to find out the something fashion had returned. The greaser fashion had returned. Although much of the album concept is only explained in the cartoons printed in the sleeves, there are changes in the plot or in details between the cartoons and the music. A clip of the title track was released in the Slipstream video, which returned to much of the original album's concept. So, yeah. How about this one, Eric?
So this was kind of the third one in this batch that I think I had honestly only listened to this about twice before this past week or so. And nothing honestly really grabbed me about it. And that's the reason I didn't go back to it very often. But to be honest, when I went back to it this week, I don't hate it, honestly. It's just kind of it's not a terrible album by any means. It's just when it's surrounded by these other albums, you can't but compare it to those, and there's no way it can stack up to Minstrel in the Gallery or Songs from the Wood or whatever. It's definitely more straightforward. I would still call some of it prog rock, but it's honestly more of just a straightforward rock album to me. That said, it's not bad. I actually, when I was listening to this week a couple times, I enjoy every song on here, but there aren't any tracks that I love, to be honest. There's no standout. There's no like really amazing song on here. Quiz Kid has some cool riffs on it. Salamander is kind of a weird one. It's like a reworking almost of Cold Wind Valhalla, but just really kind of missing a lot of the elements that made that song so great. Taxi Grab is not bad, kind of a hard rock song in a way. There's a couple ballads on here, like From a Deadbeat to an Old Greaser, which is kind of just like slow, doesn't really go anywhere. But that's probably like that one and Bad Eyed and Loveless are probably my two least favorite songs on the album, I would say. The title track is pretty decent. It's got a bit more kind of interesting parts to it, a little proggier. I do like the Pied Piper is pretty catchy. The last song as well is kind of more mellow. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, there's just no song on here that I love, to be honest. But I don't hate it either. So it's kind of a weird album for me. One thing that I would say is if this wasn't a Jethro Tull album, I might like it more. If it was just some random 70s band that put out this one album and disappeared, for instance, I might like it more, but at the same time, it still wouldn't be one of those kind of hidden gems that you find where it's like...
Dude, I'm so sorry I didn't have you in focus. My bad.
Oh, whatever.
I fell asleep at the wheel. My apologies.
I'm not a huge fan of staring at myself anyway, so it's all good.
Okay.
But, yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird outlier in the catalog, kind of, in that it just...
Big time.
It's just really kind of stripped down and basic, and it does sound like Jethro Tull, but it kind of doesn't in a way either. That said, I probably will still pick this up at some point just to have this whole run of albums. Right now, I'm giving it probably a 6.5 out of 10.
Man, way more generous than I'm going to be.
But like out of the 3 albums as well that I wasn't too familiar with, I'm definitely going to go back to This Was and War Child more than this in the future. I just no doubt about it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What's up, Patrick? What you got on this one?
All right, so this is the original U.S. pressing. Came out on the Green Chrysalis label.
Right.
So
where's the cartoons at? On the inside? On the
yeah, on the insides, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Right.
That's kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so So this like Passion Play is a record that I have not listened to in many years. And actually, I honestly forgot about this record. When you said you were doing this deep dive, I was mentally going through the records in my head. I literally forgot about this record. I absolutely forgot about it. And as I was looking at the Discogs while we were doing this stream, I'm like going, holy shit. So I thought about it. And then I started listening, spot checking a few of the songs. And none of these things really stuck out to me. I will probably record this and listen to it one more time and see what happens. But I think when I first got this record, when it came out, I mean, I bought it when it came out, and I think I listened to it, and it was much like Boston Don't Look Back when I first got that one. Although Boston Don't Look Back has grown on me over the years, this one has not. But yeah, this was just a complete disappointment for me then, and when I was listening to it back, it was a complete disappointment again. You know, even the title track, I'm not a big fan of. I'm not a big fan of that song, even though it was kind of a hit. I just wasn't a big fan of it. It just didn't do anything for me.
Super over orchestrated.
Yeah, it just this. I mean, out of 8 records, you're bound to have one clunker. I mean, it's you know, it's inevitable. And I'd give this a 5 out of 10. And that's what I would. That's what I would.
You and I are right on line, man. This album is one of Ian Anderson's worst albums. It's absolutely one of Tull's worst albums. There's virtually nothing on here that's memorable. Quiz Kid, barely memorable. Crazed Institution, I don't remember at all. Taxi Grab, I fucking hate that song. It's like a blues. It's almost like a blues mouth harp harmonica track that's just, I don't like it at all. The one great song here is Salamander. Kind of a Dunring Gill, kind of a Skating Away. That's Eric, you mentioned it. I forget which track you referenced. Do you remember what track you referenced?
The one he said sounded like shit, I can't remember. I remember he said this would sound just like
I'll ask him when he comes back. I forget. Deadbeat to an Old Greaser. Ugh, horrible. Bad Eyed and Loveless. Ugh. Big Dipper. Too Old to Rock and Roll was the hit. Don't love it. Too old. To rock and roll. Too young to die. It's kind
of like Ian Anderson's "Get Off My Lawn" album. You know, he's like,
you know what this is? This is their cabaret album, man. And it's not.
I'm getting older. I'm not cool anymore. You know, so now I have to get off my lawn, dude. Yeah,
it's not a very good album at all. Which the cool thing about this album is it probably kicked him in the ass to produce some of his best work coming up the next.
Which we'll get to now. Yeah.
Which we'll get to in a sec. I am gonna the Checkered Flag, Dead or Alive's okay. So there's like 3 tracks on here that I would even consider worthy of Jethro Tull. The rest, I just don't think they're good albums. I don't think they're good, man. Is it better than Elude? Yeah, that ain't saying much. It probably is, yeah. I'm going with a 5 out of 10 like you. And that was a push. On a good day, I'm going 5 out of 10 with this. Eric, what did you say Salamander reminded you of?
Cold Wind to Valhalla.
That's what I thought he said. Yeah.
It's really similar if you listen to them back to back. It's
a little bit. And that's why it's my favorite track on the album, without question. But the lead, you know, do you have to have it if you're a Tull completist? Yeah, you have to have it. Is it a good album at all? No, it's really not. It's the worst. It's the worst album that they put out in that run, like Patrick said. The good news is things are going to look up a lot from here for the next 5 albums. We're only going to talk about 2 of those albums so that we're not running into the 9-hour territory tonight. I think we're making pretty good time now. The next one, Songs from the Wood, February 11, 1977, recorded September through November of 76 at Morgan Studios, London. Chrysalis, Ian Anderson, producer. Drawing inspiration from English folklore and countryside living, the album signaled a redemption of the band's wide-ranging folk rock style, which combined traditional instruments and melodies with hard rock drums, synthesizers, and electric guitars, all laid in the band's complex prog rock template. The album was the first Jethro Tull album to include Dee Palmer as an official member of the band, who after 8 years of serving as the band orchestral arranger had joined as a second keyboardist in early '76. The album is considered to be the first of 3 folk rock albums released by the band in the end of the '70s. Songs from Wood, '77, Heavy Horses, '78, and Stromwatch, '79. Filled with the imagery from the medieval Britain, especially Jack in the Green, Cup of Wonder, Ring Out Solston Bells, and ornamental folk arrangements as in Velvet Green and Fire at Midnight. Songs from the Wood was a departure from the hard rock of earlier Jethro Tull material, though it still retains some of the band's older progressive sound. Anderson's inspiration to pursue folk was inspired by recent changes in his personal life. He had recently gotten remarried, purchased a farm estate in rural Buckinghamshire, giving him an opportunity to evaluate and reflect upon the cultural and historical significance of making that commitment to English residency. Anderson was also partly inspired by the book Folklore, Myths, and Legends of Britain, which was given to him by Tull's then manager, Joe Lustig, in '76. All right, guys, what do we have to say about this album?
Yeah, so as I kind of alluded to earlier, this was the first Jethro Tull album that I really got into. Although it did actually take me a little bit as well to get into this one. For some reason, the title track really grabbed me right away with just those super cool rhythms and stuff that come in once the whole band kicks in. It's just fascinating. They do this. There's these kind of it seems weird to call them sneaky kind of rhythmic things that they do. Still in 4/4, but they just hit so many offbeats and put things in weird spots that it makes you think that they're not in 4/4 anymore. Like if you try to count it out, you get lost, but if you keep your head bobbing or your foot tapping, it comes back around to the same place. And there's a lot of that in Songs from the Wood. Man, John Glasscock, I guess, joined on the last album, but this one, man, he really comes into his own on here. And you did mention the band he was in before, Carmen. They're a great band and really worth checking out for anybody that likes Jethro Tull. They're kind of
I never checked them out. Yeah.
They're kind of, I don't know, they're kind of like this almost in a way. They're kind of hard rock and folk rock, but the folk is more like Spanish influence, kind of like flamenco stuff. Cool band anyway. But yeah, the bass work and the drumming on Songs from the Wood, as well as the guitar work, is of course just fantastic. I love that song. First Jethro Tull album or song that really blew me away, and still one of my favorites. Jack in the Green is kind of a more acoustic thing.
Fucking love that song.
Yeah, great melodies. Another thing about this album, this I would say this is where they start bringing in some of the best melodies that they've created in their career, I would say. As great as they were on albums like Minstrel in the Gallery, the melodies all over this album are just
fantastic.
Fantastic, yeah. Cup of Wonder has a cool, like, upbeat groove to it. Man, Hunting Girl is just crazy. It's so heavy. Killer is going crazy, and Barrymore Barlow is just absolutely killing it on this entire album, but especially on Hunting Girl. Like that, the double kicks in there, and I forgot to mention the double kicks in stuff like, I think it was Minstrel in the Gallery, some of that too, like the song. He's doing pretty fast double kicks, which was pretty ahead of the time, to be honest.
Well, that's why they said they wanted to replace John Bonham, because he had the foot.
Right. Yeah,
that's right.
But yeah, the whole like verse kind of part of Hunting Girl is just driven by those double kicks, and the last fill that he does before they go back into that riff in the song, that huge tom roll is just like lightning speed. It's insane. Ring Out Solstice Bells is probably, I don't know, not one of my favorite tracks on here.
Oh man.
Love that song.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Love that
I don't know.
song.
I don't mind it at all. It just
Every Christmas, man.
Yeah. They did put it on the Christmas album.
Yes.
It's a great song, but I don't love it as much as some of the other songs on here. To be honest, Velvet Green and The Whistler were two songs that for whatever reason didn't resonate with me for a while. But I don't know. I listened to this album again maybe 3 years ago, and just those songs just blew me away for whatever reason. They finally clicked. Just amazing. I love that little guitar line that comes in Velvet Green. And the kind of, there's a lot of, as folky as this album is, there's a lot of synths on it too. This is where the synths really start becoming a little more prominent, I would say. But there's some really good synth stuff on Velvet Green as well. The Whistler just has so many cool rhythms in it. The drumming in that is just like, Barrymore had such a great feel for when to go crazy and when to just put the accents in the perfect spots to enhance everything else that's going on in the song. Like just the rhythms that they create between the guitar and the drumming, just everything on here is just awesome. Pibroch Cap in Hand is a slow burner, but just super epic. And I love those lead guitars that come in, just kind of echoing, and amazing song. Another one that's like, I think it's over 8 minutes long, but it does not feel like that when I listen to it. Fire at Midnight is a pretty mellow thing to close out, but it's still, again, another enjoyable song. Not a favorite for me, but man, this whole album is just really consistent start to finish. And I'd say probably another 9.5. I could even go 9.75. I don't know. Just amazing.
All right. Pat, how about you, man?
All right, so here's the U.S. pressing. They've changed to the two-tone blue and white label at this point. This is, again, the mastering is the same if you're in the U.K. or the U.S., so don't go buy an expensive U.K. pressing. Just get the U.S. You can find these for a couple of bucks still to this day. Has a nice lyric inner. Also, as a bonus, this is the EP. This is the Bring Out Solstice Bell EP. It has
I've never seen that.
Christmas Song and Pan Dance.
Cool. Yeah, they're on the as a bonus supplement.
I'm sure. But yeah, so this is a nice, cool original UK EP. Welcome to the Renaissance Fair. I mean, that's
a great way to put it.
You know, it's like, yeah, give me a turkey leg and a freaking pint of ale, and oh look, there's Richie Blackmore over there. There's Richie Blackmore and Candace Knight playing next door. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this was. I was in high school when this album came out, and this was a very popular record amongst me and my peer group. It still is very popular with me. 3 songs on this album were staples in the live set for a long, long time. Songs for the Wood, Jack and the Green, and Hunting Girl were all, live staples and sounded great. I mean, what a great way to start the record, Songs from the Wood. I mean, just the a cappella, let me bring some, and you just kind of know you're on a journey. I love that, Jack and the Green, that just makes me feel like I'm in some, English field somewhere, doing. Now, one thing before I forget about it is that the production on this to me is not that great. The production has changed. It's very upper mid heavy, almost bright and brittle, which is surprising because brittleness wasn't really going to be commonplace till the mid 80s. But I mean, the highs were a bit smeared for me, and it just wasn't the best sounding record of probably the worst sounding one from a production standpoint of this whole series coming down the line. which is kind of sad because it's one of my favorites. Cup of Wonder, I can just see myself sitting in a freaking tavern somewhere in like, in the 1700s, drinking a pint, and just singing this song around a campfire, with a bunch of bar wenches walking around. That's just the feel of this album just takes you anywhere. I mean, it definitely just takes you musically, but also just like almost like, historically, elsewhere. It's just such a different vibe to it. Hunting Girl, I love Hunting Girl.
Sounds like the album cover.
Exactly. It feels like you're, and that could be anywhere. That could be any time frame. That could be in the 1600s. It could be yesterday. You know, and that's what always brings out to me. I love Ring Out Solstice Bells. I always play it during the holidays.
So do I, man.
It's always just been something that and you could just tell. You could tell the sincerity in Ian's voice when he sings this song. When he did it, it wasn't like, there are sometimes he's putting on, he's putting you on. He's not putting you on with Ring Out Solstice Bells. You can tell he's in. I guess he got remarried about this time, and he was, you could tell he was in a good part of his life, because it's definitely not a dark album.
Nope.
Velvet Green, I like, but it's not my favorite. I do love The Whistler, though. The Whistler, I love. It's another one of those
awesome.
Happy feel good songs, that just makes you, you're hanging out with your buddies, drinking a pint, maybe a couple of hobbits come in, who knows?
It's an Irish jig, man. It's an Irish jig.
Cap in Hand is one of those growers. You have to like really get into it for it to like sink into your bones, And Fire at Midnight's a good closer. It's kind of mellow, and he lets kind of Martin shred a little bit at the end, and then it just kind of like fades out, but for me, this is one of my favorite Jethro Tull albums. I would give it a 9.5 out of 10, almost a perfect 10. If it could have had one more, get rid of probably Velvet Green with something else, and it probably would have been a 10 out of 10 for me.
I liked what you mentioned about just being a feel good album. Like if you compare this to this, just the overall mood of the album is
completely different,
kind of downtrodden and kind of dark, and this is
defeated.
Just and
defeated,
and scary.
yeah. And Pat, you said it best. This is the beginning of the Renaissance fair period, which I love. I love it. My favorite albums from this band are from this era. The next three are in my tops, along with Minstrel and Aqualung. Holy crap. Let me bring you songs from the woods. Da, 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 da. Oh, it's so good, man. Like you said, the acapella thing. I'm really struggling here with my tongue, so I'm trying to sing really hard.
Red and roses filled with summer.
Yeah. Da, 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 da. And it's like you said, Eric, great point, man. Very deceptive. When this song grows and it gets to the songs from the woods will make you feel much better. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like starts and stops, almost like where it's deceptive, like, right? Brilliant opening track. One of my top 5 favorite songs.
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta keep it going, right? And then, man, oh, good gosh. Have you seen Jack in the Green with his long tail hanging down? Man, the beginning of that is just Jack in the Green, one of my top 5 favorite songs. I'm just telling you. A lot of my favorite songs come off these next 2 albums. And Jack in the Green is just so fucking cool, man. Love that song. Couple Wonders, really a beautiful, nice, acoustic-y sort of thing. Wistful, British, good fun. As I was saying on Jack in the Green, though, the interplay between the vocal melody and the music is just super cool on that song. Very evocative of forests and mystical beings and druids and, whatever, pygmies or whatever. Hunting Girl. Hunting Girl. One of my top 5 favorite Jethro Tull songs.
There you go.
I love that song, and it's a big arena rocker, right? That's a big arena rocker. But yet it's got that mystical folkiness, which that's this whole album. It's a mystical folk album, man. It is fucking brilliant. Ring Out Solstice Bells. Christmas-inspired track, really cool refrain. Ring out these bells, ring out these bells. And he's got the multi-part harmonies on there. Just beautiful, man. Velvet Green. That's the longest and the most proggiest, mainly acoustic. Cool chords on this one and vocal melodies. I love Velvet Green. The Whistler. Just good Lord, man. Irish King. Top 5.
There you go.
There we go. All right.
You're going to run out of top 5 room on the next album, too. So you're going to be in problem. You're going to be in hell at this.
Where do you hear it? No, I got a song on the next one. It's a top 1 song. Anyway, you figure out which one it is. I won't tell you till we get there.
I know. I could guess.
I'll let you guess when we get there. Give me one minute.
I'll go to the private chat. I'll put it in the private chat.
P-Rock. Dark, menacing, moaning guitars. Wow, wow, it's so good. Smoky, menacing lyrics and dark delivery. Cool as fuck. Fires at Midnight, ending short rocker. Now, here's the weird thing. I thought, and this is terrible that I didn't know this. I was thinking Beltane was on here, but Beltane's on Broadsword. And don't know how I missed that. Somehow I did. But we'll get to Beltane in a future episode. Because I was thinking it was on here. It was tagged on at the end of this album for some weird reason. And I thought it was part of it. And I just looked and I'm like, oh, it's not even on there. And I didn't think it was, but I was like, anyways. Beltane, one of my top.
Was it on the Moth single?
I don't know. No. I don't know how it ended up on there. Weird. There are 2 bonus tracks on here that were not on the album that almost were Working John, Working Joe, and Old Aces Die Hard. And then a bunch of other different mixes, unedited master, One Brown Mouse, which is coming up, strip cartoon. No, that's another one. And then a live stuff. So this one, good luck finding this out there. This is the most, as far as I know, the most difficult one to find because it sold out really quickly and was gone for crazy money.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I had the urge to just reach into my computer screen and try to grab it from you.
Not gonna happen.
No, I know.
I'm quicker than that. Anyway, real quick, I didn't. No, it's not that track, Pat. Not that track. That's my second favorite on that album, though. But here's the deal. Before we get to that one, I didn't grade that one, did I?
No, you didn't.
No. So, very near the top of my favorite Tull albums, the wistful folk influences and medieval Britishness and progginess and interplay between guitar, synths, keys, flute on this one, and the next album are what do it for me completely. 10 out of 10. Love this album. It's probably my favorite of the 70s albums, but I have to temper that. I say it's probably, but it might not be. Ian was in the zone writing and singing and driving the Tull vision. Some of Ian's best songs are on this album, that one we just talked about. And then there's this one.
It's a better album.
You might be right. You might be right. Jethro Tull Heavy Horses, the New Shoes edition, which has, let's see, this has, I wasn't telling you guys this, but this has 5 discs. What's that?
It's got a textured cover on the vinyl. The textures.
Oh, really?
Raised, embossed, raised.
Now, I will say the only thing I don't like about these books is some of these in trays, the fucking disc won't stay on them. So when you open them, the discs fall out right away, which pisses me off. When you have these 2 multi-layered things where one lays under the other, if you don't catch the lip of that bottom one right, everything falls out. That pisses me off. So that's the one negative about some of these. Heavy Horses. April 78, released April 10th, 78 in the U.S., April 21st, 1978 in the U.K. It actually came out earlier in the States than it did in the U.K. That's interesting. Recorded May of 77 through January of 78 at Maison Rouge and Fulham Studios in London. Chrysalis and Ian Anderson. This album is often considered the second in the trio of folk rock albums. released by the band in the 70s. Heavy Horses adopts a more realistic and earthly perspective of country living. The album and its title are dedicated to indigenous working ponies and horses of Great Britain. Musically, the album sees the band continuing the combination of folk and progressive rock found on Songs from the Wood, with an overall darker and more somber sound fitting the changed lyrical content. While continuing on for the folk rock style of Songs of Woods and Heavy Horses sees a tonal shift into more earthly and realistic themes of country living. Sorry, guys. Compared with the fantasy and mythology of the previous album. Anderson was again inspired by daily life at his recently purchased country estate in Buckinghamshire, saying, I was living in the same house in the same place and getting a bit more involved in farming and other rural stuff. So the horse hoeing husbandry of the original Jethro Tull area was in the back of my mind. Several of the songs, album songs were directly inspired by Anderson's personal life at the estate, and The Mouse Police Never Sleeps was partially inspired by his cat Mistletoe. No Lullaby was written as an anti-lullaby for his son, and Rover was partially inspired by their dog Lupus. Other songs on the album, such as Weathercock and the title track, paint a cold and practical picture of country living, with the latter track described by Anderson as a lament for the passing as working animals of those magnificent beasts, the heavy farm horses. Other tracks' lyrics were inspired by literature, such as One Brown Mouse, inspired by Robert Burns' poem To a Mouse and Moths, inspired by Jean Le Carre novel The Naive and Sentimental Lover. So, Erik, how about Heavy Horses?
I'm lucky to have two pairs of shoes for this
nice.
One. The old shoes and the new shoes. This is the last one I picked up at. I got a really good deal on this at the music store in the mall in the city, where closest city to me. It's like $50 cheaper than it is anywhere online. I don't realized what it was worth, but glad.
Was it used? Was it used?
No, it was brand new.
Oh, okay.
Brand new.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Another fantastic album, to be honest. Like you said, this one is a little less upbeat, I would say, than the last one, lyrically for sure. And there's a lot of, I would say in general, this one is kind of a little more, maybe even more acoustic than the last album, just in terms of instrumentation and stuff. And really well produced. I would say this is probably the best produced album of this era, kind of. It's just everything is super clear, and like Patrick was saying with the last one, it was a little trebly kind of. This one is a little less like that. And I gotta say too, I love John Glasscock's bass tone on this album. It just really punches through everything in the mix, and his bass riffs all over the place are just fantastic. They really stand out in a lot of these songs. First song, And the Mouse Police Never Sleeps, is just a really cool way to open the album. Really interesting, cool acoustic guitar riffs on that one, and some cool percussion as well. It's interesting how it ends too, with those overlapping kind of double tracked vocals that just get louder and louder, and the rest of the music fades out. Acres Wild is, I mean, I love every song on this album. To me, this is almost more consistent than Songs from the Wood, just in my overall consistent enjoyment of every song. Acres Wild is just again amazing acoustic guitar riffs on that one, and the layers of guitar, the cool rhythms from the rhythm section on that. No Lullaby is kind of it almost feels like it kind of doesn't fit in a way on this album.
I agree.
It's bluesy, it's heavy. It's almost like proto-metal in spots, with that faster palm-muted riff that Martin comes in with. But, I mean, it's an amazing song anyway, so I'm not going to complain about it. It's just, it kind of feels like an outlier on this album in terms of just the feel of it. Moths is more of a kind of slower, a little bit slower one, but really great vocals from Ian on that one. Great acoustic playing. Journeyman is another, I mean, I'm going to say a lot of the same things about a lot of these songs. Just the layering and the clarity between all the instruments. Everything just comes in exactly where it should be. And the way the interplay between all the musicians on here is just some of the best. I don't know how to say it, but some of the best of all time. Just like how they lock into every rhythmic and melodic piece, and it's all the pieces of the puzzle just completely fit perfectly to make everything amazing. Rover is again another one that's just super catchy. That guitar riff, the main guitar riff in that is amazing. One Brown Mouse is one of the more mellow songs on here, a little bit slower. Heavy Horses is the kind of, along with No Lullaby, it's kind of the epic of the album. Love those guitar riffs that come in, and so many different sections in that song, but they all flow together so well. And then Weathercock is kind of another upbeat, folky number to close things out. Yeah, just another amazing album. And another probably 9.5, I would say, for me. Love it.
Okay, so it's me.
All right, Pat, what do you got on Heavy Horses?
So here's the U.S. pressing, and then we have there was a Record Store Day 10-inch that had your Beltane on it. It was Moths, and it has
cool.
Living in These Hard Times, Life is a Long Song, and Beltane, A Stitch in Time, and Sweet Dream Live. So that came out about a few years ago on Record Store Day. So Heavy Horses, and to echo what Erik says, I think the arrangement on these songs was absolutely perfect. I think when you talk about, a puzzle fitting together and stuff, the arrangement of these songs was absolutely immaculate. I mean, they were so well put together. Everything was in its place and was absolutely fit. I mean, and the Mouse Police Never Sleeps. I mean, what a great opening song. And as you said, like the ending, where it kind of grows and he's like, and the Mouse Police, and it just ends, but Acres Wild to me is like the unsung hero of this record that, no one ever really talks about. I always thought that was one of my favorite songs. And I love No Lullaby, even though you're right, it does have a different feel to it. And it's definitely heavier than the rest of the songs on this record. But you follow it up with Moths, which is which is so diametrically opposed to No Lullaby, even though the names are very kind of like passive. But No Lullaby is anything but a passive song. But Moths is a great song, and Moths just kind of paints the whole picture for the album. It just kind of is a brief overview of the whole record as a whole for me. Because he's kind of painting a story of like I'm in this life now where I'm in this pastoral world, as opposed to where I was before. He's kind of transitioning into this part of his life. Journeyman is probably the one song that is probably if I have a least favorite song, it's Journeyman. I don't dislike the song, but it's probably the one that I would probably not play the most. Whereas Rover, though, I mean, just the way the pacing of these songs, it's hard to describe. It's not the melody, but the way he sings some of the lyrics, like when he goes like, "Cause I'm a rover," he has that pause.
Yeah,
he says
right.
Rover. There's these little inflections and these very, very tiny things that he does when he sings a song. Not just on this album, on every album.
On every album, yeah.
But these very little things he does that's memorable. It's kind of like you just remember these little things about it that make it stand out to you. And that's one of the things that stands out. And I love One Brown Mouse. I especially love the live version of One Brown Mouse, where they start it and have to start it again. And but Heavy Horses is a very. It's almost I almost feel sad every time I hear it because and it's not because the song is bad, but it's just the way he's lamenting about these horses that have served him for so long. And it just kind of leaves me, and I used to work at a zoo, so I'm very, into animals and stuff. Right. But it just always kind of left me kind of sad after I heard it, and then Weathercock doesn't make me feel any better. So, you know, and so it just kind of wraps it up, and it's almost melancholy at the end of this record. But I love this record. I mean, this is probably my second most played Jethro Tull album, next to Aqualung. Probably the second most I've ever played, and it's a 10 out of 10 for me. It's easily, it's that good for me. I love this record.
Nice. All right. Well,
bring us home.
Okay. Yes, Mouse Police. What a playful, fun, lyrically wistful track. And like you said, it's that, and the Mouse Police never, you know, it's like what he's doing, that little like repeated line where it starts to overlap and delay. It's just so cool the way he wrote that. Acres Wild, rustic acoustic number, beautiful. No Lullaby is it's the outlier. It's a great track. It's one of the two centerpieces of the albums. It's lavish and musically artistic, ending on that slide guitar, which is not the usual thing for them. It's a lot of people's favorite off this album. It's not mine as far as the two epic tracks. I like it. It's the one thing that's going to keep this being a 10 out of 10, though, for me, weirdly. Moss. Oh, Moss is just such a beautiful, wistful, theatrical, musically mature song. Big melodies, beautiful flute melodies on that one, right? It's one of my favorite tracks on the album. Big strings, over-the-top melody, great track. Journeyman, and this is going to be interesting. Patrick, do you know much of King Crimson?
Yeah.
And you do, right, Eric?
Absolutely.
All right. Listen to that song after we're done here. Go back and listen to it real quick. I hear a lot of Discipline era King Crimson in that song. Mm-hmm. It's the way the guitar melodies are moving with the keys. It's just weirdly King Crimson-y, okay? Love it. Rover, because I'm a rover. Exactly. You nailed it. You perfectly nailed it. It's just so good. One of my favorite songs. It's in the top 5. One Brown Mouse. Love the wistful, rustic, folksy, British vibe of that song. But guys, man. Guys. Heavy Horses. My number one favorite all-time, hands down, Jethro Tull song of all time.
Wow.
Dunrin Gill is right there, but we haven't gotten that album. Dunrin Gill is right there. But this song, let's see if I can remember what I just did. Because I did it in my head.
It takes you on a ride.
Yeah.
It takes you on a ride.
Yeah, what did I do with my guitar pick? I am the master of using guitar picks. Like, I can have one in my hand.
Every guitar player is a master of losing guitar.
Yeah.
Good point.
Let me see if I remember. Yeah. It's in a bad key there. Anyway, down, 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 down.
It's really dark. Like, it's very dark.
It's very dark, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful melody on the guitar. The riff is so cool. And you know, it's not that far off note-wise from Aqualung. It's very similar. There's two notes that are different, and the way it's played, and I bet you Ian would even say that oh yeah, I kind of was singing Aqualung and I did this. Here's what I wrote. HH is just the knockout punch. Those melodies are to die for. Such an epic, grand track. My favorite Jethro Tull track, right there with Dunrin Gill on the next album that we'll talk about in the next episode. And like you said, and the way he sings that chorus, man. Heavy horses, move on to the night. It's just, Pat, you nailed it, dude. It makes you feel. The night goes away. It makes you feel something inside, right?
Yeah.
And then the little part, like the chorus starts with the heavy horses, da 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 through the night, and then it goes, now we're down to the few, and there's no work to do. The tractor's on its way.
But it's a descending vocal line, but it descends down from the heavy horses part on that, and the night goes. Yeah.
Just so amazing. Cool. I love that song. It's what, close to 9 minutes, I think.
It's just over 9, I think.
Just over 9, yeah. And it's I love that song. Weathercock, another killer track, heavy and menacing in a weird way, dark but uplifting. They had a weird way of writing. Anderson has a weird way of writing dark, menacing sounding songs that still sound emotional and uplifting, right? He's a master at that, I think.
Yeah.
Couple of bonus tracks, which we shouldn't get into, but Living in Hard Times, great song, brought for Bizarre. This and the next album in the trilogy, the last, which we're going to start the next one with, Pat, if you're with us for that, hopefully you will be, completes the kind of trilogy of the folky acoustic stuff, right? And it's my favorite period, without question. These 3 albums are in my top 5 with Minstrel and probably Aqualung. And we'll talk about that in a minute to wrap up. But this is some of the best 70s rock that's ever been written, in my opinion. It just is. And
what an amazing run of the records, though. I mean, what a phenomenal run of records.
With one stinker
other than too old to rock and roll.
And it's kind of like... Sorry.
Oh, and just so unique. I mean, there was no one that sounded like
him.
Anything like Jethro Tull in the 70s, and there still isn't to this day. I mean, you get...
No, I mean, the closest you could maybe say is Zeppelin, but Zeppelin were way more bluesy, more blues-based, and their folky stuff...
Zep 3 was the only thing that was be close to that. Zep 3 would be the only thing that was comparable
Zep 3 and maybe Zep 4, the acoustic stuff.
Yeah.
But it didn't really... It wasn't super British sounding. It was more American sounding blues, their acoustic stuff, right? Tull had a very unique British sound during this period of time. And, again, man, here's the deal. This is probably my favorite album. I'm going to have to really think about hard when we rank them at the end of episode 2. But this is probably my favorite, mainly because the title track just blows me away every time I hear it. No Lullaby, though, makes me give this a 9.75 because I struggle with that one a tiny little bit, just a tiny little bit. So, guys, we went through 11 albums here in 3.5 roughly hours. Not bad. I think we did really well.
No, not too bad.
The plans for the future. I don't know what your schedule's like, Pat. Are Sundays usually kind of open for you in the afternoons?
Sometimes I have record auctions on Sundays. It just depends on what's going on.
But like early in the day or like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you interested in sitting for part 2, or you have to think about that?
I'd have to go look. I'd have to go look and see because I mean, about Under Wraps. Well, let's go look at the discography. So
shitty album.
I know Stromwatch pretty well. I know A pretty well. Under Wraps, not familiar at all. Crest of a Knave, I love. Absolutely adore Crest of a Knave.
Right.
Rock Island, not huge on Rock Island.
Right.
Catfish Rising, I have. That now we're gonna start getting to the point where I kind of check out on this stuff.
Roots and Branches, Jethro Tull, A and .com, and then you've got.
I kind of checked out at that point.
All right. Well, here's the deal. What you can do is, if you want to sit for it, and you know the albums that you know, maybe check out the ones you don't know. Give them some run throughs. You don't have to run. You can run through them briefly and get. If you get like halfway through a song, like this is shit. Move on, then do that. I don't have a problem with that. I own everything up to the last 2, and there's some stinkers in there. There's some brilliant albums too. The next one, A, Broadsword, all really good albums. You've got Crest of a Knave, really good album. Roots to Branches, not a bad album at all. So there's some good stuff to talk about, but I do want to do the whole catalog.
I'll take a look and see what I got.
All right, let me know if you want to join for that. Okay. And, I'd like you to. And if you want to skip the last one because of the, we're going to do it all together with the box sets and all that shit.
Yeah, that's not my wheelhouse at all. I would watch it, but I probably wouldn't have much help to you.
I'm forcing Erik to do it. But let's try to do that. Pat, what do you have coming up on the channel? I'm going to blow us up to the full presentation here. Give me 1 sec. We got coming up. You got something coming up tonight. Am I joining?
Tonight, if you want to, we're going to do top 5 Aerosmith songs.
Cool.
So
yeah, I got a list.
So Sundays we do a top 5 of some sort, and then we rank them, and we have a spreadsheet. We vote on them, and then we do a poll for the people in the audience. They can vote on whether we got it right or if we were idiots for choosing the songs that we chose. So it's usually kind of fun. We talk about it, and usually the playlist for that night is something to do with like I'll be playing a lot of Aerosmith, probably Whitford St. Holmes, Joe Perry Project, that kind of stuff. Anything that's Aerosmith related, I will probably start, I'll play songs from that kind of stuff. And then Tuesdays we do like usually theme nights, and then Fridays, is just a freaking madhouse of whoever shows up, and we play all sorts of different kinds of music and talk about music, and So I think Friday there was a guy David Donnelly, who plays with Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols.
Super cool.
And plays in Visage, and knows everybody and everybody in England, lives in England. We have him, Stephen Schnee, who's an 80s freaking musical encyclopedia, and then John Bip-Bop Boom, who knows tons of metal, punk, rockabilly. So there's a lot of good, knowledgeable people that show up. We just have a good time.
Sure.
And now Jeff is part of that family now. So yeah,
you'll have to. Yeah, thank you, man. We'll have to have Erik pop in maybe once. The cool thing about Erik is he's a young guy. I'm not gonna say kid, although he could be my kid because my kid's 28. He's a young guy that has a really wide palette, from black metal to a lot of classic rock and jazz and all kind of cool stuff. So that's why I love doing stuff with Erik, because it keeps me in tune with the younger generation. I feel like I'm helping influence good choices with him, right? And he's helped me too with a couple things that I didn't know about. So what time are you doing the Aerosmith thing?
Like 6:45 my time, which would be about 8:45 your time.
9:45.
Are you in East? Oh, you're in Eastern. I keep thinking you're in Houston. So yeah, 9:45 your time.
All right, so I'll join you for that tonight then.
Okay, I'll send you a link and top 5 Aerosmith songs. Just get a list.
Cool. And Erik, what do you got? Anything coming up?
I got a couple things coming in the mail that I'm gonna talk about at some point. Like, might do another episode of like underrated or overlooked 90s metal is what I was kind of calling the thing. Might do like another underrated like 70s rock thing. I have another one, 70s like hard rock. I don't know, just kind of that's what I've been doing so far, is just like kind of I want to highlight some albums that I don't think enough people know about, to be honest. Turn some people on to new stuff they might not have heard. So other than that, I mean, part 2 of this I'll be on, and part 3. And if you do that prog metal show, I'd love to be on there.
Okay. Yeah.
So what's your channel name? Every time I look up Psychic Vacuum, it's all Voivod.
Yeah. That's what the name is, but
it comes up with a couple different things. You gotta put
I think I found you. You're at Psychic Vacuum 5.
Yeah, put channel in, and it comes up that way, right?
There you go.
Okay, for me, Tuesday night, 8:00. I have not done the thumbnail or the announcement yet, but I'm gonna have. Excuse me. I was supposed to have Paul Masvidal and Kelly Schaefer on, but I've been having trouble figuring something out with Paul. So gonna have Kelly on solo because he has a new album coming out this Friday called Till the Dirt, new band. We're gonna talk about Till the Dirt for about a half hour, 45 minutes, something quick. That's Tuesday night at 8. Thursday night, the crew is back. Dennis, OG Press, Analog Archives is coming on with me to do Forgotten Metal Gems of the 80s and 90s. We're going to talk about Tyrant, Warrior, King Cobra, Vicious Rumors, Non-Fiction, I'm sorry, and one other band that's escaping me, damn it. Oh, Warlord from Mark Zonder. We're going to talk about 11 or 12 albums there, just Dennis and I. That's Thursday night at 10. I got to work on getting part 2 together here. I can't let it slip months, guys. I just don't have that kind of, I think you understand there, So I'm thinking at worst 2 weeks. That's
okay.
Kind of what I'm angling for. So if you're interested, Pat, you'll have to let me know. If you're not,
I will let you know.
Yeah. The Paul Masvidal and Kelly thing, I'm trying to get it together. We'll see how that works. I was supposed to interview Duncan Patterson, but I have not heard from him, and I reached out to him again a couple times and don't know what happened there. So maybe that line of communication broke down, or maybe he watched some of my show and was like, "Oh, I don't want to go on with this guy." But the Anathema thing, we're probably looking more at the end of September. And am I missing anything? I don't. Oh, Hawkwind is still in flux. I got to talk to Melinda to see if that's going to happen. I think we were looking at September 10th. So I may still try to stick to that. Remember, that's just 9 studio albums and 1 live album, Space Ritual, just the 70s period. I'm not digging beyond that with Hawkwind. There's just too much, and too much of it starts to sound the same for me. But then was there anything else? I think that's it for now. If I'm missing anything, I don't know. We'll have to. Oh, the Prog Metal Island thing. Hang tight, guys. That'll be the next in the Island series. We just did black metal. We did doom metal. We did death metal, whatever. Thrash metal. So we've done 4 of the genres, and prog metal will be the next one. And I gotta pull a group of people in for that. Eric's in for it. I gotta find my guys for prog metal. That's a trickier one than he, anyways. Mr. Raccoon, thank you, buddy. Stormwatch, I think if you're still here, Anna. Storm Rider, I'm sorry. Zeb, thank you, man. Who else do we have in here? Anybody else?
Oh, we had some people early on.
Yeah, Rick bailed, Phil bailed.
I'm looking at Eric's video of his top 10 things. So top 10 albums played. Johnny the Fox, what a great record.
There you go. Devin was in here earlier, and so was Ryan. So guys, I appreciate we had 10 guys on that, which it doesn't surprise me on a Sunday afternoon. It's nice out, probably people are out running around, but I think this will get some eyes. Hopefully it will. And we'll do part 2 soon, guys.
All right. Thanks for having me. I will see you later tonight there.
Yeah, hang on one sec.
Okay.
Oh, did it end? Oh, all right, we're ending now. Hang on, guys.